Chapter 779. Chu Changsheng stepped through the air, his long robe fluttering in the wind. His long sleeves fluttered, and his white hair and beard billowed. His eyes were incomparably sharp, coldly staring at Yanyu. It was as if there was lightning within them. Yanyu was greatly shocked in his heart. He felt a frightening, killing intent lock onto his body. He was extremely shocked and furious. Without the slightest hesitation, he let out a roar and rushed out of the Noodle King restaurant. He lost the chef's challenge. This was something Yanyu had never imagined. He had never thought that he would lose to Bu Fong, and under the circumstances of using such a precious ingredient. It should be known that he had used an ingredient that was close to a divine herb. Using such an ingredient in a chef's challenge already made his heart ache. However, if he could win the chef's challenge, it would not be too much of a loss for him. A spirit herb that was close to a divine herb saved his life. It was not a loss at all. After all, if he lost the spirit herb, he could continue to search for more. However, if he lost his life, the divine herb would no longer have any meaning to him. Yanyu was clear that Chu Changsheng definitely wanted to kill him. Why did Chu Changsheng not appear during the chef's challenge? Why did he only appear after the chef's challenge had ended? It was to kill him. Chu Changsheng was probably afraid that he would not be able to control himself during the chef's challenge. That was why he did not come to watch the chef's challenge. The sudden turn of events caused everyone to be slightly stunned. Then, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Was the Great Elder going to kill Yanyu? Yanyu is a special grade chef of the Valley of Gluttony. Wouldn't this be a huge blow to the Valley of Gluttony? The Valley of Gluttony did not have many top chefs. It would be a pity if one of them died like this. Many people did not know what had happened in the Inheritance Land, so they did not know that Yanyu had betrayed the Valley of Gluttony. Or perhaps, Yanyu was not even a member of the Valley of Gluttony. Bu Fong rubbed his hair, calmly looking at Yanyu, who had turned to run. When Yanyu turned to run, the resentment in his eyes made Bu Fong slightly furrow his brows. Resentment? This fellow dared to look at him like that? Bu Fong gently exhaled. In the next instant, his hand flipped, and the black turtle constellation wok appeared in his hand. Energy flowed around the black turtle constellation wok, and there seemed to be an earthy yellow halo flickering on it. With a long whistle, Bu Fong's gaze turned cold. His hair fluttered in the wind, and in the next instant, the black turtle constellation wok was thrown out by him. As the black turtle constellation wok spun, the air let out an unbearable rumble, as if it was about to be torn apart. Yanyu hurriedly fled. He could no longer care about anything else. Chu Changsheng's murderous aura locked him, making his pores tighten. He knew that if he didn't run, he would die. Suddenly, the sound of something tearing through the air resounded behind him. Yanyu's gaze turned cold as he turned his head to look behind him. He saw a black wok spinning as it whizzed over. The black wok glowed with an earthy radiance and was filled with violent energy. This was Bu Fong's black turtle constellation wok. Yanyu naturally recognized it. Who would have thought that this guy actually dared to attack? You're courting death. Yanyu was enraged. This guy had defeated him in the chef's challenge and cut off his path of survival. Now, he still wanted to stop him from escaping. It was simply unforgivable. With a move of his mind, several turbid yellow jade talismans appeared in his hand. The jade talismans were filled with mysterious patterns. True energy poured into the patterns, making them look as if they were alive. But a buzzing sound echoed. In the next instant, the jade talismans were thrown out by Yanyu. Sizzle, sizzle. The jade talismans exploded in the air, and in an instant, they turned into several huge lightning figures. These were the spirit talismans of the ancient Jade Holy Land. The ancient Jade Holy Land was different from the other Holy Lands. They were good at making spirit talismans. As a member of the ancient Jade Holy Land, Yanyu naturally had many spirit talismans in his hands. The spirit talismans that transformed into lightning giants were also one of the ancient Jade Holy Land's techniques. Its power was not weaker than the ancient Jade Lock. As soon as the lightning giants appeared, they looked as if they were wearing armor. As they stepped on lightning, they opened their mouths, revealing a pitch black hole. Lightning shuttled back and forth, creating a series of rumbling sounds. The Black Turtle constellation walk whizzed over, directly smashing towards the lightning giants. Numerous lightning giants raised their hands and fiercely slapped towards the Black Turtle constellation walk, intending to smash it in one move. Yin Yu's heart ached and his mouth trembled. Those giant spirit talismans were extremely precious items. He only had a few in his hands, and they were used to protect his life. Today, he had actually used them all at once. However, in order to survive, even though Yin Yu's heart ached, he had no other choice. Chu Changsheng walked in air as if he could shrink the ground to an inch. His speed was so fast, and each step he took shook the void and made it explode. His eyes seemed to have lightning bolts as he coldly stared at the fleeing Yin Yu. It was as if he was looking at a dead man. Although Yin Yu's strength was not bad, in front of Chu Changsheng, who was an almighty, he was as weak as an ant. However, the giant spirit talisman attracted Chu Changsheng's attention. Boom! Bufang's face was incomparably calm as he watched the Black Turtle constellation walk and the giant spirit talisman collide. As for the Black Turtle constellation walk, Bufang was not the slightest bit worried. That was a god of cooking set. Not to mention a mere lightning giant. Even a real lightning tribulation might not be able to leave a mark on the Black Turtle constellation walk. The lightning giant and the Black Turtle constellation walk collided. A deafening explosion instantly erupted, and lightning bolts shot out. Many people in the surroundings let out cries of alarm as they hurriedly dodged. The Black Turtle constellation walk was sent flying back, but the lightning giant was also shattered. The coldness at the corner of Yin Yu's mouth became even thicker. If there was a chance, he would definitely kill this Bufang. Time and time again, he had ruined his plans. As Bufang dragged the Black Turtle constellation walk, he felt the lightning flickering on the surface of the Black Turtle constellation walk. The faint numbness from the lightning caused Bufang's eyebrows to rise. "You youngster, do you need how to make a move? I will make a move. As long as you say the word and give me 3 chili strips, you can make a move. If that kid can take a step forward, you can deduct 1 chili strip from How about it?" Hades' Era moved closer to Bufang and said with a smile. Bufang glanced at Hades' Era, and the corners of his mouth instantly rose. Why did he still need Hades to make a move? With him around, that Yin Yu would not be able to escape. What Bufang needed to do was to make Yin Yu's footsteps slow down for a moment. His mind flickered. A white magic array instantly appeared beneath Bufang's feet. The magic array revolved, and in the next instant, a crystal glass knife cabinet slowly emerged from the magic array. That knife cabinet shone brilliantly, and it was extremely beautiful. Inside it, there were many kitchen knives. Many people who saw this scene involuntarily sucked in a breath of cold air. This was Bufang's knife cabinet. Within it, there were many kitchen knives belonging to the top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony. Noodle King Ouyang Chinfeng's kitchen knife was one of them. Ouyang Chinfeng's face was filled with bitterness. Looking at the knife cabinet, his eyes were filled with complex emotions. Looking at the cicada wing knife in the cabinet, his heart trembled. However, he was not discouraged. If he wanted to take back the cicada wing knife, there was only one way, and that was to work hard and cultivate. He had to raise his culinary skills and defeat Bufang fair and square to take back his kitchen knife. This was his goal, and it was also his motivation for the next step. Yin Yu's flying figure suddenly stopped, and his face revealed an expression of shock. His body suddenly flipped in the air, and in the next instant, the shadow chopping knife flew out his hand. "My knife!" Yin Yu's eyes shrank, and he roared with a heart-wrenching voice. The shadow chopping knife was his life knife, and it was the key to supporting his culinary skills. If his kitchen knife was taken away, Yin Yu's culinary skills would drop by many levels, thus, he would not allow Bufang to take away his kitchen knife. The veins on his forehead were bulging. Yin Yu's hand tightly gripped the kitchen knife, and he would not let go even if he was beaten to death. Boom! However, with this delay, Chu Changsheng landed not far from Yin Yu. Yin Yu's body stiffened, and his face was filled with fear as he looked in Chu Changsheng's direction. There, A pitch-black spear appeared in Chu Changsheng's hand. That spear was the weapon that Chu Changsheng had condensed with all of his energy to kill Yin Yu. Giant Spirit Talisman. Block it for me. Yin Yu panicked. He controlled the remaining 2 giant spirit talismans to block in front of him. Then, he threw away the kitchen knife, turned around, and continued to run. He knew that if Chu Changsheng caught up to him, he would die without a doubt. Facing an almighty, he had no power to resist. Run. When you used the ancient jade lock to torture me, why didn't you run? Chu Changsheng said coldly. His eyes were cold, and he domineeringly grabbed the giant spirit talisman's body. The muscles on his arms bulged, and with a loud roar, he tore the lightning giant apart. The sky was filled with lightning arcs, and Chu Changsheng's eyes were extremely cold. In the next instant, the spear swung, and with a ripping sound, it was thrown out. The illusionary void cracked and twisted. Yin Yu wanted to run, but when he turned around, his soul almost left his body. The true energy in his body surged, and a soul ladder appeared above his head. A bright star shone, illuminating everything. However, facing Chu Changsheng's terrifying power, Yin Yu almost lost all hope. That spear came with an irresistible force, tearing apart everything in its path. Under Yin Yu's magnified gaze, he was nailed to the ground. His chest burst open, and fresh blood gushed out, staining Yin Yu's clothes. Yin Yu was howling, and his entire body couldn't move. His face was full of fear and begging for mercy. The shadow chopping knife fell into Bu Fong's hands. He held the kitchen knife, playing with it for a while, then prepared to put it back into the crystal knife cabinet. Although this kitchen knife was a famous knife, it couldn't compare to the dragon bone kitchen knife. Chu Changsheng clasped his hands, calmly walking toward Yin Yu. The entire place was silent. The great elder had personally come to deal with Chu Changsheng. What had happened? Yin Yu struggled, but no matter how much strength he used, he couldn't pull the spear out. Chu Changsheng, kill me. The Valley of Gluttony will be completely finished. The ancient Jade Holy Land will disregard everything and attack until the Valley of Gluttony is destroyed. Yin Yu roared. Chu Changsheng walked slowly, and the wind was gentle. Yin Yu's face was filled with fear. Suddenly, in the next instant, on Yin Yu's body, the light of a talisman flashed. That light shot down, falling into the void. Space distorted as a blurry silhouette appeared. A terrifying aura instantly spread out, causing everyone to hold their breaths in an instant. Chu Changsheng felt the pressure on his body, and his face changed slightly. The silhouette in the void floated high up in the air, radiating resplendent light. Sir, stop. Yin Yu can't die. Once he dies, this old man's anger, a mere valley of gluttony, can't bear it. The light shadow said. Chu Changsheng's eyes shrank, his face cold. Yin Yu coughed out blood, looking at the light shadow, and laughed excitedly. I said, you can't kill me. The consequences of killing me, your valley of gluttony can't bear it. Yin Yu said excitedly as he coughed out blood. In the void, the white light shadow said calmly. Its words were filled with an inviolable sense of superiority. Great Saint Sovereign, I beg you, help me take back the shadow chopping knife. Yin Yu grabbed the spear that pinned him to the ground. His eyes were filled with passion as he shouted. As soon as those words came out, Chu Changsheng's face changed. Bu Fong's brows furrowed. That white light shadow, with its terrifying pressure, turned and covered Bu Fong. Chapter 780. The light shadow's gaze suddenly turned and landed on Bu Fong. Yin Yu was still roaring crazily on the ground. His eyes revealed a crazed look, and his face was ferocious and full of resentment. That's right. He hated Bu Fong. Everything had happened because of Bu Fong. If he had won this chef's challenge, he would have been able to escape safely. It was all because of this guy. Yin Yu hated Bu Fong to the core. More importantly, Bu Fong had stolen his shadow chopping knife. The shadow chopping knife. It was a famous knife that he had painstakingly obtained. With it, he had been able to sit on the first rank of the Tablet of Gluttony for so long. Today, Bufong had dared to steal his famous knife. Hence, at this moment, he roared crazily. If the light shadow wanted to save him, it wouldn't hurt to help him take back the shadow chopping knife. At the same time, he would also kill this little chef. He knew the identity of this light shadow. It was the ancient Jade Holy Land's holy saint, an existence just below the saint sovereign. The holy saint's cultivation base was definitely beyond everyone's imagination. Yinyu believed that no one would dare to go against the holy saint's words. As the great elder of the Valley of Gluttony, Chu Chongqing definitely knew what the holy saint's identity meant. A holy land, a holy saint, and a saint sovereign. The holy saint was an existence that served the saint sovereign. When the saint sovereign cultivated in seclusion, many important matters of the Holy Land were handled by the Holy Saint. For example, although the Heavenly Spring Holy Land's Amethyst Elder had a strong cultivation base, he was still not a Holy Saint. Hence, one could imagine how noble and powerful a true Holy Saint was. At this moment, the light shadow of a Holy Saint was floating in the Valley of Gluttony. The light shadow's gaze was fixed on Bufong. He felt as though his breathing was about to stop, and he felt extremely uncomfortable. Although it was just a light shadow, the power it possessed had long surpassed Chu Chongqing's realm. What Yinyu said, is it true? If so, then hand over the famous knife. Otherwise die, the light shadow said. Its voice lingered around the entire place. Yinyu's face was ferocious as he roared crazily. Chu Chongqing's face stiffened. He was so angry. Bufong looked on indifferently. Holding the shadow-chopping blade that belonged to Yinyu, he tilted his head and glanced at the figure in the sky. Then, clang! The shadow-chopping blade was placed into the crystal cabinet by Bufong. The brilliance of the array flickered, and in the next moment, the crystal knife cabinet slowly sank into the array. You want the returning shadow chopper? Sure. Let him use his cooking skills to defeat me again. If you want to take it by force, there's no way, Bufong said as he looked at the light figure expressionlessly. As soon as he said that, Chu Chongqing's face changed. He had never thought that Bufong would say something like that. Was he not afraid of death? He was a saint sovereign of the ancient Jade Holy Land. If he wanted to kill him, it would be as easy as killing a fly. What an arrogant kid. How many years has it been since someone dared to talk to me like that? The light figure was still looking at Bufong as it floated in the air. However, Yinyu is a member of my ancient Jade Holy Land. The shadow-chopping blade naturally belongs to my ancient Jade Holy Land. What's the harm in taking it by force? The light figure said. In the next instant, that light figure seemed to have passed through the void. In an instant, it appeared in front of Bufong. A terrifying pressure rolled up waves of air. In that instant, the Noodle King restaurant seemed to be on the verge of collapse. The surrounding people were all terrified. No one had expected such a thing to happen. Chu Chongqing wanted to kill Yinyu, and Yinyu actually had such a powerful backer. That light figure was so arrogant that the Great Elder didn't even dare to move to be able to make the Great Elder, who was already an almighty, not dare to move. What was the origin of that light figure? You opened her mouth. Her lips were red because she had eaten too much abyssal chili sauce. Xiaoya and Hua had the same expression. These two little girls couldn't help but take deep breaths as they curiously looked at the light figure. Hades' era was a little depressed. He covered half of his face as he calmly looked at the light figure. He gently sighed. Xiao Bai's gray eyes moved. With a clang, the red-hot war god stick flew out and landed in his hand. On his forehead and back, there were ferocious spikes extending out. In his gray eyes, there were black particles moving. In the next instant, the metal wings on his back suddenly spread open. That light figure was pressuring Bufong. A terrifying pressure spread out, causing the entire Noodle King restaurant to creak. It seemed like it couldn't bear the pressure anymore. That pressure was too terrifying. Many people quickly retreated. Some even had the urge to kneel down. As for Bufong, because he had the system, his immunity to pressure was very high. Thus, his face was still expressionless. In the eyes of the audience, they all revealed a look of admiration. This neither servile nor overbearing attitude was worthy of being Bufong. All of a sudden, a red-hot iron stick swept out, smashing the overflowing pressure of the light figure. The light figure's head was smashed, but the pressure didn't disappear. The light figure slowly became blurry. In the next instant, it reappeared in the distant sky. Its entire body was blooming with light, and it wasn't injured at all. It seems like you don't want to hand over my ancient jade Holy Land's shadow chopping knife. If that's the case, then you can die. The silhouette seemed to be a little impatient, and its cold voice instantly spread out in the void. Xiao Bai's gray eyes flashed. In the next instant, the war god's stick aimed at the light figure in the sky. The war god's stick rapidly lengthened, as if it wanted to pierce through the light figure in an instant. However, the light figure slightly stretched out a hand. It seemed like a long sleeve was hanging down, and a finger touched the red-hot war god's stick. It actually stopped the stick from advancing even an inch. This many people sucked in a breath of cold air. Indeed, it was worthy of being able to release such a terrifying pressure. It was an existence that even the great elder was afraid of. With just a finger, it actually blocked the stick of Xiao Bai, who could kill an almighty existence. Xiao Bai's eyes flashed, and the lines on his body flashed. It seemed like he wanted to increase his power, allowing the long stick to break through the finger. It's useless. In this valley of gluttony, you are all ants in front of me. Just be obedient and serve me. Boom! All of a sudden, the light figure opened its mouth and spoke halfway, but its voice stopped abruptly. A hand slowly pierced through the chest of the silhouette. The hand pierced through the silhouette's chest and held onto a mysterious rune. Really, too much nonsense. Listening to it makes I so irritated. Nether King Erha's hair fluttered in the wind, and a wicked smile appeared on his chiseled face. Although I really want to listen to you talk for a while, I have received 3 spicy strips from Bufong Young Man. If I let you say one more word, one of my spicy strips will be deducted, said Hades Era. The light figure stiffly turned its head, its face bewildered. How was it that this fellow was able to hide within the glowing shadow and use 9 small arrays to conceal his aura with a single glance? You. The light figure opened its mouth, trembling as it spat out a word. Hades Era's eyes widened. A moment later, his hair stood on end. Shut up. Don't talk anymore. Nether King Erha's eyes were filled with anxiety. He turned his head to look at Bufong's direction and found that Bufong was shrugging his shoulders. His fingers, which were pointing at 3, immediately dropped by 1, turning into 2. Hades Era's gloomy face twisted. His heart ached so much that it was hard to breathe. 1 spicy strip was missing. God damn it. Hades was so angry that his kidneys hurt. He exerted force in his palm, crushing the light symbol. The light figure was stunned. Yin, who was laughing crazily on the ground, was also stunned. Hades Era's tears scattered in the sky. He grabbed the light figure's body with both hands and tore it apart with a ripping sound. The light figure instantly shattered in the air, turning into specks of light and dispersing. The glowing figure's head was filled with disbelief and confusion. What had happened? Was there a mistake in opening it? It was said that he was invincible. It was said that everyone else was an ant. The light figure opened its mouth, as though it wanted to vent the unwillingness in its heart. However, Hades Era's eyeballs almost popped out. He kicked out and crushed the light figure's head, making it hard for the light figure to speak. Crack! Yinyu's mind trembled. The moment the light figure shattered, something in his body seemed to collapse as well. His head was in extreme pain, as though it was being torn apart. A miserable howl rang out from Yinyu's mouth. Chu Changsheng came back to his senses. He took a deep breath. A Holy Saint's clone was crushed just like that. This guy, who looked so depressed, was a little too strong. However, now was not the time to think about such things. Chu Changsheng's eyes suddenly became sharp. He coldly looked at Yinyu, who was nailed to the ground by a long spear. He took a step forward and instantly appeared beside Yinyu, who was screaming miserably. He raised his hand, and energy revolved in his hand. In the next instant, boom, a loud explosion rang out, causing everyone's heart to jump. Then, everyone looked at the spot where Yin had been nailed to death in shock. At that moment, there was only a huge palm print left. It had caved in, and Yin Yu's body had already turned into a mist of blood. He couldn't be any more dead. Yin Yu was dead in the end. The first special grade chef of the Tablet of Gluttony had died in the hands of the Valley of Gluttony's great elder. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. They took in a breath of cold air. Chu Changsheng pulled out the long spear. Then, the long spear turned into energy and dispersed. The light figure exploded, and Yin Yu died tragically. Xiao Bai also retracted his metal wings, returning to his harmless appearance. He carried the victory stick, standing behind Bufang. Hades' era had returned to Bufang's side. He was hugging Bufang's shoulder, talking and laughing. However, Bufang's face was still calm, without any expression. Sometimes he shook his head, and sometimes he nodded. Hades' face also changed. Sometimes it was sad, but in the end it remained sad. I miscalculated. I didn't think that thing would actually open its mouth and say something. A spicy strip. Gone just like that. I hate it. Hades was so angry that his face twisted. Chu Changsheng did not say anything. The clothes on his back were still fluttering. Bufang held the black turtle constellation Wok in his hand. He suddenly turned his head, looking at Mu Cheng's group of three. His eyes moved, falling on Mu Cheng's body. The next opponent of the chef's challenge is you. Chapter 781. Yin Yu is dead. Chu Changsheng's long spear had pinned him to the ground. Then, he had smashed the ground with his palm. His flesh and blood had turned into nothingness. No one dared to breathe loudly as they watched the scene in a daze. A top chef of the Valley of Gluttony had died just like that. Not even his bones were left. Many people understood the whole story. It seemed that Yin Yu had betrayed the Valley of Gluttony. This special grade chef, who was ranked first on the Tablet of Gluttony, wasn't a member of the Valley of Gluttony. He was a traitor from another holy land. The other party had summoned that light shadow, and even Chu Changsheng was a little afraid of it. However, things had ended in such a dramatic way. Everyone was speechless when they saw Nether King gritting his teeth and crying. That insufferably arrogant light figure, that incomparably domineering light figure, was actually crushed by a single slap from this clown. Bufang didn't care much about it. It was the other party who had come to find trouble. If the other party hadn't said that he wanted him dead, Bufang wouldn't have used the spicy strip to lure Hades' era and make him take action. He had thought that the light shadow was really strong, but in the end, it was just a paper tiger. Hades' era had instantly killed it. The matter had ended. Bufang had won the chef challenge. He was one step closer to the completion of the temporary task. Bringing you, Xiao Bai, and Hades' era, he slowly left, disappearing from the audience's sight. The audience could only hear the sound of Hades' era bargaining with Bufang. Mu Cheng's face was incomparably solemn. Looking at Bufang's departing figure, she let out a long sigh. Bufang's meaningful gaze before he left, as well as his words, caused her hair to stand on end. Was she the next one? In the end, it was her turn to fight. She had been observing Bufang's chef's challenge as a bystander. Now that she was going to have a chef challenge with Bufang, she still felt a huge pressure. However, this pressure did not make her afraid, but excited. He was so excited that his legs involuntarily tightened. Mu Cheng was also a special grade chef, and she was ranked second on the Tablet of Gluttony. Of course, if she really wanted to compete for first place, she could easily do so. After all, Yin Yu's culinary skills were somewhat superficial. Although it was there, it was somewhat unworthy of the name. Lu Jili stood beside Mu Cheng. He opened a metallic book in his hand and gently exhaled. He extended his hand and patted Mu Cheng's shoulder, wishing her good luck. Bufang had never tasted defeat in a chef's challenge. His momentum was really terrifying. If Mu Cheng wanted to defeat Bufang in the chef's challenge, it would be a little difficult. Of course, Lu Jili was still somewhat familiar with Mu Cheng. Although she was the only woman on the Tablet of Gluttony, Her culinary skills were extremely terrifying. This was because Mu Chang had the 100-flavor spirit tongue that ordinary chefs envied. The so-called 100-flavor spirit tongue was able to accurately taste every flavor in a dish. Moreover, it knew the strength of each flavor. Moreover, it was extremely sensitive to flavors. With the 100-flavor spirit tongue, Mu Chang also had a famous knife that was even more famous than Yin Yu's shadow chopping knife, the profound theory knife. This was an extremely ancient famous knife. It seemed to have existed before the Valley of Gluttony was established. Although everyone knew that Mu Chang had this famous knife, no one had ever seen her use it. Lu Jili was a little curious. He did not know if Bufang would be able to force Mu Chang to take out the profound theory knife. Mu Chang's style of cooking was incomparably exquisite. It was as though she was creating a work of art. Her taste and knife skills were very strict. Many of her skills were very exquisite. In the Valley of Gluttony, there was a very accurate evaluation of Mu Chang's culinary skills. It was said that Mu Chang was a master of mechanisms that surpassed the heavens. She was not a chef. The corners of Wenren Shang's mouth curled up. He poured a mouthful of thick bamboo wine into his mouth, laughing loudly as he looked at Mu Chang. Big Sister Mu, it seems like the one who will have a headache next is you. Mu Chang's eyes instantly widened. Who are you calling Big Sister? Your whole family is Big Sister. Mu Chang coldly snorted. Then, she swayed her body and left. No matter what, Bufang had still brought her some pressure. This pressure made her very excited. In this chef's challenge, it seemed like she would have to use all her strength. Ancient Jade Holy Land, the ancient Jade Great Hall, stood proudly on the peak of the ancient Jade Mountain. It was made of gold bricks and jade tiles, and it looked majestic. That great hall was extremely gorgeous and dazzling. From afar, it looked as though it was emitting light. This light shot up to the sky, extremely dazzling, attracting the gazes of countless people. In the ancient Jade Mountain, there was a white jade staircase that led directly to the peak, directly to that great hall. On that white jade staircase, many people kowtowed 3 times and kowtowed 9 times. With incomparable sincerity, they walked toward that great hall. That ancient jade hall was like a holy land, attracting countless devout believers. The ancient jade hall was the center of the ancient Jade Holy Land. The entire great hall was built with rare and precious minerals. It was incomparably exquisite, emitting light. Moreover, the walls and stone pillars of the great hall were engraved with mysterious arrays. These arrays revolved, constantly emitting a terrifying pressure. In the center of the great hall, a figure wearing a long golden robe sat cross-legged in the void. Around the figure's body, there were several circular formations revolving around him. Suddenly, that figure's eyes opened. It was as though the void was collapsing and collapsing. The surrounding arrays began to revolve rapidly. The revolving speed was so fast that even the void seemed to be unable to withstand it. Buzz! A figure dashed in from the outside and knelt on the ground. Saint Sovereign, do you have any orders? It was an existence at the quasi-divine spirit realm from the ancient Jade Holy Land. He was wearing armor, holding a long mace in his hand. His face was full of respect as he knelt in front of the great hall. Behind him, there were many experts from the ancient Jade Holy Land kneeling. Through the great hall, one could see the white stone steps of the ancient Jade Mountain. Zealous worshippers were climbing up the mountain path, their faces filled with excitement and longing. The disciple I sent to the Valley of Gluttony is dead. My clone was also killed by someone. I can feel wisps of nether energy from the existence who killed my clone. The Saint Sovereign's eyes were like the bright stars in the night sky, causing the void to collapse unceasingly. That terrifying pressure and power made the hearts of the people kneeling in front of him shiver. What? There's nether energy? Isn't that a netherworld creature? A netherworld creature that could kill the Saint Sovereign's clone? How could it appear on the continent? The expert holding the long mace had a face full of shock. The Saint Sovereign's eyes turned, and it was as though the void had collapsed. His gaze landed on that expert, making him feel as though his body was being pressed by a heavy mountain. It was so heavy that he almost couldn't breathe. Do you think I would lie to you? I don't need you to believe me. You just need to investigate for me. Once you find anything, come back and report to me. The Saint Sovereign said calmly. That expert's heart instantly shivered. His face changed, and he hurriedly lowered his head, not daring to look at the Saint Sovereign's eyes. Yes, this subordinate understands. Go. There's no need to create more trouble. You just need to check if it's a netherworld creature. If it is, the Saint Sovereign said. As he reached the end of his words, his tone suddenly became cold. With a cold snort, the surrounding array began to tremble, and the void seemed as though it was about to collapse. The expert holding the long mace slowly retreated out of the Great Hall. The rotation of the array in the Great Hall also gradually slowed down. The Great Path principle is weakening. These netherworld creatures are becoming more and more lawless. Bufong returned to the inn. The Lord Go was still lying on the ground, snoring loudly. The fat on his body slightly trembled as he inhaled and exhaled. Bufong returned to his room, sitting on a chair to rest for a while. He brewed a pot of tea and poured a cup for everyone. You sat beside Bufong, her hands holding a cup of tea as she gently sipped on it. Hades Era was currently concerned about how to eat the spicy strip. Hence, he did not have any mood to drink tea with Bufong. Bufong, on the other hand, was not in a hurry. He took a sip of tea and calmed his breath. He gave Nether King Air Han an indifferent look, then stood up and walked toward the kitchen. He needed to prepare and think about the dish he would prepare for tomorrow's chef's challenge. His opponent for tomorrow's chef's challenge was Mu Chung. Regarding this woman, Bufong did not know much. However, Bufong knew that her culinary skills were definitely not bad. As for the theme of the chef's challenge, it was stewing soup. Soup had always been the #1 category of cooking, and stewing soup was a cooking method that had a lot of research value. Bufong also liked to stew soup, but he rarely did so. Hence, tomorrow's chef's challenge would be a huge test for him. Since Mu Chung dared to bring up this theme, she naturally had her own confidence. Hence, if Bufong did not prepare, he might really lose. However, what kind of soup should he stew tomorrow? Stewing soup required ingredients and spirit herbs. Both of them were indispensable. Of course, he also needed kitchen utensils to stew soup. However, Bufong had the Black Turtle Constellation Walk, so he did not need to worry about the so-called kitchen utensils. Bufong did not believe that there would be any kitchen utensils more awesome than the God of Cooking set. After pacing around the kitchen for a while, Bufong's gaze once again landed on his shoulder. He saw Xiaopi, who was leisurely spitting bubbles. Xiaopi's ability was quite useful. It could increase the effectiveness of the ingredients, making the taste even more delicious and the effects even more obvious. Hence, this time, Xiaopi still could not be missing. However, other than Xiaopi, Bufong felt that the most important thing was deciding which soup to stew. Suddenly, a bright light flashed in Bufong's eyes, and the corners of his mouth curled up, revealing a meaningful smile. He knew what soup he should stew. In front of this dish, everything else was just fleeting clouds. Bufong gently exhaled. Green smoke twirled, and then the dragon bone kitchen knife spun in his hand. The next day, early morning, Valley of Gluttony, Phoenix Pavilion. The Phoenix Pavilion was the location of today's chef's challenge. The owner of the Phoenix Pavilion was Mu Chung. As a special grade chef, how could she not have her own restaurant in the Valley of Gluttony? That was because the news of the Phoenix Pavilion's special grade chef, Mu Cheng's chef's challenge had spread. The originally crowded Phoenix Pavilion became even more bustling. It was so crowded that not even a drop of water could trickle through. The sun was high up in the sky. The crowd instantly parted to form a path. Bufong wore a striped red and white vermilion robe. He clasped his hands behind his back, his face expressionless as he slowly walked over. On his shoulder, there was a golden shrimpy that was spitting bubbles. As he stepped forward, Bufong's eyes instantly became serious. Bufong raised his head, looking straight at the second floor. On the second floor, there was a voluptuous figure standing. This figure was Mu Chung, who had prepared for an entire day and night. Today, Mu Chung wore a formal chef's robe, which covered her voluptuous figure. However, It made her look even more mature and charming. This woman's gaze was incomparably attractive. She raised her hand, and a strangely shaped kitchen knife appeared in her hand. At this moment, the hustle and bustle stopped. Everyone looked at Bu Fong and Mu Chung with shock and excitement. They were all looking forward to the start of this intense chef's challenge. Chapter 782. Mu Chung held a circular kitchen knife in her hand. That kitchen knife shape was really strange. It was a kitchen knife made of a light blue metal. It was round and hollow in the middle. Many strange patterns covered the surface of that kitchen knife. As the patterns flashed, that kitchen knife slowly spun, floating above Mu Cheng's palm. Instead of saying it was a kitchen knife, it was more like a light blue disc. It was like a precise machine, and the metal kept changing. This was Mu Cheng's kitchen knife, the famous knife of the Valley of Gluttony, the profound theory knife. It was mysterious and unique. It was a kind of kitchen knife that no one could imagine. This knife seemed to have surpassed the shape of a kitchen knife. It was just called a kitchen knife. Mu Chung wore a neat chef robe. Her sharp eyes shot down from the second floor, clashing with Bu Fong's calm eyes. There was no tit for tat, and there was no lightning. There was only a kind of calmness that filled the hearts of the two. The entire Phoenix Pavilion was crowded. Everyone was looking forward to this chef's challenge. That was because after Bu Fong's chef challenge, more and more people felt that it was inconceivable. Did this little chef really want to use his power to sweep the entire Valley of Gluttony's top 10 chefs of the Tableau of Gluttony? Fortunately, this fellow had changed the rules of the chef challenge. The loser would only be stripped of his kitchen knife. If the rule still existed, then Bu Fong would destroy the Valley of Gluttony's top 10 chefs of the Tableau of Gluttony. Moreover, Bu Fong was getting closer and closer to this goal. He was almost about to complete it. Come up. I've been waiting for a long time. Mu Chung looked at Bu Fong, then smiled. In that instant, many people were captivated by her charming smile. Although Mu Chung was only wearing a standard chef robe today, that neat chef robe made Mu Cheng's temperament even more mature, causing people to be even more intoxicated. When Mu Chung opened her mouth, everyone quieted down, waiting for Bu Fong's reply. However, Bu Fong was silent for a while. Then, he replied with a single word, "Okay." Then, under the dumbfounded gazes of the crowd, he stepped into the air and walked to the second floor of the Phoenix Pavilion. Bu Fong's expression was very calm, and Bu Fong's emotions were very calm. However, it was precisely this calmness that made everyone feel a little unnatural. What happened to the promised chef's challenge? As soon as Bu Fong stepped onto the second floor of the Phoenix Pavilion, the atmosphere on the second floor immediately changed. There were very few people on the second floor. The bustling atmosphere on the first floor did not exist on the second floor. There were only a few people on the second floor. Chu Changsheng was wearing a long robe as he sat on the panel of judges. There were some familiar faces there. Lu Jieli was holding a book with a metal cover, reading it. Wen Renshang was holding a bamboo flask of wine, constantly pouring it into his mouth. The thick aroma of wine instantly filled the air. The sixth elder raised his mustache and stared at Bu Fong with sparkling eyes. The last judge was a man wearing a bamboo hat and carrying a fish basket on his back. His straw raincoat still had water stains that hadn't dried yet. Obviously, he had just been pulled back from outside. This person lifted his head, revealing a weather-beaten face with a smile on his face. This person was the angler of the Tablet of Gluttony, Zhou Chung. He was a first-grade chef with a famous knife, the fishbone knife. This kind of lineup of judges was really luxurious. At least, many people were convinced. The scene of the chef's challenge on the second floor was broadcasted to the first floor through a projection array. Everyone gathered in front of the array, watching with great interest. Everyone's face revealed a look of anticipation. Hades' era brought you and Xiao Bai. The few of them looked at the densely packed crowd, which was like a mountain, and blinked their eyes. A moment later, Hades' era brought you and Saint Daughter Ziyun up to the second floor. Hua and Xiaoyu also went up to the second floor. Currently, in the Valley of Gluttony, these two girls could be said to be the devil incarnate. No one dared to provoke them. Except for Bu Fong, these two girls basically didn't care about anyone else. Who asked Xiaoya to receive the Valley of Gluttony's inheritance? She was the next Valley Master of the Valley of Gluttony. The space on the second floor wasn't small. However, with two stoves, the space seemed a little cramped. Bu Fong walked in front of his stove. It was a bronze stove which was really exquisite and had all the functions one needed. When Bu Fong saw Mu Cheng's stove, his brows arched. This was because Mu Cheng's stove was truly shocking. She took out all sorts of tools and piled them up on the stove. These tools were really exquisite, and they were all precise instruments. For example, there was a bronze box that was as tall as a person. When the box was opened, there were many exquisite crystal utensils. These utensils had very strange shapes, and ordinary people couldn't recognize them. Of course, Bu Fong didn't recognize them either, which was why he was so surprised. Cooking didn't just require a kitchen knife, a ball of flame, or a wok. Why would one need so many things? That would be a crooked way. Today's theme was soup, stewing soup. Mu Cheng and Bu Fong obviously came prepared. The two of them placed the ingredients that they had prepared on the stove. Bu Fong took out precious ingredients one by one. These ingredients were very precious, but they weren't expensive. This made many people slightly suspicious and surprised. Many people knew that Bu Fong had the Tao Ye's meat and Tao Ye's heart in his hands. These were the legendary top-grade ingredients. As long as these top-grade ingredients were taken out, Bu Fong's chances of winning would increase by 30%. However, something unexpected happened. Among the ingredients that Mu Cheng and Bu Fong took out, there weren't any high-grade ingredients. Although the grade was a bit lower than the Tao Ye's meat, it was still a divine soul realm cooking ingredient and was incomparably precious. To many people, it was a precious cooking ingredient. Mu Cheng washed her hands and rolled up her chef robe, revealing her fair and tender arms. Her gaze landed on Bu Fong, and a playful expression appeared on her face. Honorable, what I'm best at is stewing soup. This is the dish that made me famous, and the reason why I became a special grade chef. I hope I won't let Honorable down today. Mu Cheng said. After speaking, the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. With a shout, the true energy in her hand surged into the light blue blade in her hand. With a clanging sound, the light blue blade flew up and combined together, turning into a kitchen knife. Theory Saber. This was the true face of the Theory Saber. The kitchen knife spun, and a blade light flashed. Mu Cheng picked up a fat fish that was still releasing lightning bolts. She placed it on the chopping board, and the Theory Saber instantly slashed down on the fish's head. As it slashed down, the metal pieces on the Theory Saber flew out, gathering at the side of the Theory Saber. It made the Theory Saber look dazzling. 3 blades slashed down at the same time, and the fish was instantly disintegrated. Fish skin, fish scales, fish meat, fish bones. After sorting them out, they were all completely processed. This scene was projected through the projection array to the first floor. Everyone was silent. Was that a kitchen knife? It was so dazzling that it didn't make sense. This kitchen knife was simply made for cooking. After Mu Cheng calmly processed the fish meat, she indifferently looked at Bu Fong, who was cleaning the kitchen knife. Then, she took out a metal platform. That platform was very strange. There was a huge funnel at the top, and there was only a small opening at the bottom. True energy poured into that platform, and that ordinary platform instantly emitted a luster. In the next instant, Mu Cheng stuffed the processed fish meat into the funnel of that platform. Not only that, but she also stuffed the fish skin inside. Everyone was a little confused. What was Mu Cheng trying to do? Perhaps only Lu Jieli knew that Mu Cheng wanted to display her own advantages and style to the fullest. A buzzing sound rang out. Mu Cheng took out a porcelain bowl filled with clear liquid and placed it under the funnel. That platform buzzed for a while. Then a white spirit energy mist emerged. In the next moment, tiny pearl-like particles fell from the mist and filled half of the porcelain bowl, filling it to the brim with water. Those pearl-like particles were filled with energy, emitting a radiance. After being fished out by Mu Cheng, Mu Chung pinched two of her fingers, squeezing a particle and shoving it into her mouth. Her brows slightly furrowed. These were all the essence of the fish meat and the fish skin. Relying on this precise platform, these essences were purified. Mu Cheng's cooking method obviously made Bufang a little surprised. However, he was only surprised. As a chef from Earth, Bufang had seen all kinds of strange cooking utensils, so he was already used to it. The dragon bone kitchen knife in his hand spun, fiercely picking up an ingredient. The knife light flashed. The meteor knife skill burst forth, and in an instant, that ingredient was completely processed. Bufang still chose the most basic cooking method. He was also good at this kind of basic cooking method. If he was asked to use those precise instruments, Bufang could learn it, but there was really no need for him to do so. The profound theory knife was very mysterious. The blade changed every time. However, when processing the ingredients, it was still so clean and nimble. The platform continued to rumble. Soon, all kinds of ingredients were turned into particles. These particles were the essence. After Mu Chung tasted the granules one by one, she took out a porcelain bowl and mixed the granules together. She opened a bronze box, taking out a freezing instrument that emitted a cold aura. After placing the essence of the ingredients into the instrument, she froze it. In the next instant, Mu Chung continued to cook the thick soup. This time, Mu Cheng's soup was mainly the meat of a divine soul realm spirit beast tiger. She washed the tiger meat clean and used a profound theory knife to cut it. She placed it into an orange-yellow clay pot, piling up a portion of spirit herbs that had been precisely cut by the profound theory knife. After that, she covered the pot and placed it on the fire to simmer. After doing all this, Mu Chung finally had the mood to raise her head, watching Bufang cook. However, when she looked, her eyes involuntarily shrank, because she realized that at this moment, Bufang had actually pulled off the golden shrimp that was spitting bubbles on his shoulder, throwing it into the boiling black turtle constellation wok. With a plop, Xiaopi was thrown into the wok, happily swimming around. Bufang prepared a porcelain pot, placing the processed ingredients neatly into it. He also crushed the spirit herbs and scattered them inside. After a long time, Bufang took out the shrimp from the black turtle constellation wok. The steaming hot Xiaopi was spitting bubbles as it lay on Bufang's shoulder. Then, Bufang poured the soup that was overflowing with golden energy from the black turtle constellation wok into the porcelain pot. A golden red heaven and earth obsidian flame flew out, stewing the soup. Chapter 783. The Buddha jumps over the wall soup could be called the heavenly grade Buddha jumps over the wall soup. The soup that Bufang was stewing this time was the Buddha jumps over the wall soup. Not only were the ingredients edible, but the soup was also extremely delicious. It combined the taste and fragrance of many different ingredients, especially the ingredients that Bufang used this time. They were all high-grade divine, soul realm ingredients. The meat of these ingredients was originally mixed with spirit energy, and after cooking, the spirit energy would seep into the soup from the ingredients. Moreover, this time, the soup was cooked using Xiaopi's stew, which emitted golden energy. Whether it was the taste or the fragrance, it was impeccable. At the very least, as the Buddha jumps over the wall soup gradually matured, the dense fragrance of the ingredients began to spread in the air. In the distance, Mu Cheng's cooking was also nearing its end. She scooped out the essence of the ingredients that had turned into granules. She accurately counted each granule to 100, then poured them evenly into the wok. The wok was boiling, and steam was rolling. The soup constantly churned, and whistling sounds could be heard coming from the ingredients. As the granules were poured into the tiger meat soup, the tiger meat soup became even more violent and boiling. Bubbles constantly rose, then exploded. Gulp! Using an iron ladle, she scooped out the soup. The soup had a clear color, and it actually didn't contain any oil. It was quite mysterious. The dense, meaty fragrance spread out, teasing the taste buds of the audience. Swish! She poured the clear tiger meat soup into a white porcelain bowl. Then, she took out a ladle of frozen essence granules and spread them on top of the soup. The essence granules of those ingredients sank into the bottom of the bowl, emitting bubbles. Gradually, they began to change the taste and color of the soup. Her hand spun. The profound theory knife clanged as it swung, as though it was changing shape. Soon, it became a metal disc that floated above Mu Cheng's palm. In the distance, Bu Fong had also finished the final step of cooking. Steaming hot air surged up, unceasingly surging and rumbling. With a shake of his hand, the porcelain pot was taken out by Bu Fong from the Black Turtle Constellation Walk. On top of the porcelain jar, there was a Buddha-like lid with a smile on its face. There was light flickering on the lid, giving off a faint radiance. Water droplets flowed down from the Buddha's body, making the Buddha's color even more dazzling and enchanting. Bu Fong's Buddha jumps over the wall soup was also done. The atmosphere instantly became cold. With the completion of the dish, the chef's challenge was nearing its final stage. The judges shifted their gazes to the two of them. Mu Cheng was calm and magnanimous. At this moment, she was holding a clean white towel and meticulously wiping the plate, wiping away all the dust on the plate. In the end, the white towel pulled and Mu Cheng took a step back. Her breasts trembled and a satisfied expression appeared on her face. Her dish was finished. Under the projection array, everyone let out cries of surprise. That was because Mu Cheng's dish could only be described as beautiful and enchanting. Under the light, the dish was as resplendent as glass. The clear soup emitted an enchanting aroma, and the steam billowed, unceasingly spreading and rolling. After rolling on the ground, they scattered. The soup was clear and light blue in color. There were many ice crystal-like granules in it, and each granule emitted a misty luster under the light. It was very beautiful and enchanting. On the other hand, Bu Fong's Buddha jumps over the wall soup was not as attractive. After all, the lid was not opened, and the audience could not see the uniqueness of this dish. Mu Cheng carefully picked up the soup. Then, her figure swayed as she walked toward the judges' table. In a short while, she arrived in front of the judges and placed the clay pot in her hands on the center of the table. In front of each judge was a plate. The judges' gazes landed on the clay pot, and their eyes slightly lit up, revealing a look of anticipation. Mu Cheng's soup was very famous in the Valley of Gluttony. Ordinary people did not have many chances to taste Mu Cheng's soup. That was because in the Phoenix Pavilion, Mu Cheng rarely cooked. Even if she did, she would not cook soup. Mu Cheng would only choose to cook soup when she was very serious, because this was what she was best at. Even when she competed against Yin Yu for the first rank of the Tablet of Gluttony, Mu Cheng did not choose to cook soup. However, this time, in the chef's challenge against Bu Fong, Mu Cheng brought out her best dish. Mu Cheng's face was filled with a warm smile, making people feel as if they were bathing in the spring wind. She extended her slender, jade-like hand, taking the porcelain bowl in front of Chu Changsheng. Then, she moved the spoon, and the soup splashed. She scooped up a portion of the soup. The light blue soup was clear and emitted a rich aroma. A piece of trembling tiger meat was placed into the porcelain bowl. It was unknown if the essence of the ingredient was emitting hot or cold air, but it was sprinkled into the bowl, rolling on top of the tiger meat. A wave of meat fragrance spread out. "Great elder, please," Mu Cheng said with a smile. Mu Cheng said with a smile. The smile on her face made Chu Changsheng involuntarily nod his head. "Okay," Chu Changsheng said. Then he picked up a spoon, scooping a spoonful of the clear soup into his mouth. Slurp! The soup in the spoon drilled into his mouth. This scene was transmitted to the first floor of the Phoenix Pavilion through the projection formation. There, many people were watching. Everyone widened their eyes, not daring to breathe loudly. They watched seriously, not knowing how the strict Chu Changsheng would judge this dish. Chu Changsheng took the first sip, and the look in his eyes changed. His sharp eyes softened after taking a sip of the soup. A moment later, he continuously scooped up the soup, pouring it into his mouth. Soon, Chu Changsheng put down the spoon, picked up the porcelain bowl, and poured the soup into his mouth. Gulp, gulp, gulp. His Adam's apple bobbed, and his eyes were filled with excitement. Swish, putting down the bowl, Chu Changxing's face revealed a satisfied expression. It was too delicious, too delicious, Chu Changxing thought happily. A moment later, he picked up the porcelain spoon, scooping up the essence of the ingredient in the soup. Gulp! When the ingredient essence entered his mouth, it formed a sharp contrast with the boiling soup. These essences were frozen. When he put them in his mouth, the refreshing feeling made Chu Changsheng want to swallow his own tongue. How could it be so delicious? Swish! An explosion resounded. The clothes on Chu Changxing's body were torn apart, revealing his strong muscles. Those muscles moved, slightly trembling. Delicious! Chu Changxing's face was filled with excitement. He rubbed his beard, grinning. Mu Cheng smiled at Chu Changsheng, nodding, then slightly bowing. Thank you, great elder, for your evaluation. Then, Mu Cheng walked to the judges behind her. Meticulously and carefully, she scooped the soup into the porcelain bowl. Wenren Shang laughed heartily. He looked at Mu Cheng with a playful expression. I didn't think that I would have a chance to eat the soup that Chef Mu Cheng personally scooped. Even if I die, it's worth it. Mu Cheng's soup was hard to drink, so it was natural that Wenren Shang was excited. Moreover, from Chu Changxing's appearance, Mu Cheng's soup lived up to its name. To be able to make Chu Changxing's clothes explode so quickly, it meant that the taste and texture were top-notch. It seemed that this time, Bu Fong would meet a real opponent. In the distance, Bu Fong had already finished cooking. His gaze turned, falling on the judge's table. Bu Fong seemed to have met Wenren Shang's gaze, so he nodded. A moment later, he also picked up the Buddha jumps over the wall soup, walking toward the judge's table. The judges were happily drinking Mu Cheng's soup, their faces brimming with excitement. Thud! A soft thud resounded. Bu Fong's Buddha jumps over the wall soup was placed on the table. Everyone was bewildered. Then, they put down their porcelain bowls. They all looked at Bu Fong with a playful look on their faces. Mu Cheng's soup. How delicious was it? Perhaps only those who had tasted it would know. That soup had reached the pinnacle of control over the ingredients and taste. It had almost perfected the taste of the ingredients. Adding even a little more would make people feel bad. With a profound theory knife, a kitchen knife that could precisely control the ingredients, Mu Cheng's dishes were that mesmerizing. Little brother Bu Fong, you should also drink a bowl of this sister's soup. Although we are having a chef's challenge, there is no need to make us look like enemies. Mu Cheng smiled. She scooped up a bowl of soup and passed it to Bu Fong. Bu Fong was bewildered. He gave Mu Cheng a deep look, then took it. However, Bu Fong was not in a hurry to drink it. Instead, he swept his gaze over the judges, then looked at Mu Cheng. He calmly said, My dish, the heaven-grade Buddha jumps over the wall soup, is done. After Bu Fong said that, he patted the lid of the Buddha jumps over the wall soup. The judges and Mu Cheng's gazes were instantly attracted. There, thousands of resplendent rays of light burst out from the porcelain jar. Chapter 784. The dazzling light seemed to tear the sky apart as it shot out from the porcelain jar. It was so dazzling that many people's eyes were filled with disbelief. Bu Fong received the soup that Mu Cheng handed him and opened the lid of the Buddha jumps over the wall soup. The light bloomed, and the aroma filled the air. In an instant, it had bewitched the taste buds of the judges. Mu Cheng's eyes were filled with shock, and she took a step back. Her chest violently heaved up and down as she stared at the porcelain jar of the Buddha jumps over the wall soup. The light seemed to hurt her eyes. It was really dazzling. This dish, why would it release such a dazzling light? Why would it shine so brightly? Was this really a dish? The aroma was like a dragon as it drilled out of the porcelain jar. However, Bu Fong didn't care about it. He gently scooped the porcelain spoon, pouring the boiling soup that Mu Cheng had handed him into his mouth. Sizzle. Bu Fong drank a small mouthful of the clear broth. The mellow taste and the ice-cold taste fused in his mouth, causing the pores on Bu Fong's body to slightly shrink. He had to admit that Mu Cheng's dish was really delicious. No wonder she was ranked second on the tablet of gluttony. This second dish didn't contain any water. This dish was almost perfect. The taste of each ingredient was utilized to the extreme by Mu Chung. Moreover, she used a special method to fuse the flavors together and seep them into the soup. Moreover, there were many frozen ingredients that were filled with the essence of creativity. The moment those ingredients entered the mouth, they melted. There was no need to chew them. The ice-cold liquid instantly flowed down the tongue and into the mouth. It made people's minds relax. This was a dish that made people relax. Bu Fong thought in his heart. He really liked this dish. However, the corners of Bu Fong's mouth rose. After drinking the soup in the bowl, he gently exhaled. Unfortunately, Mu Chung had met him. She had met the heaven-grade Buddha jumps over the wall soup. It was the most difficult dish among all of Bu Fong's dishes. This was because every single detail of the Buddha jumps over the wall soup required Bu Fong to use his dense mental force to control it. Buddha jumps over the wall was already very tiring to cook. However, the ingredients used in this heaven-grade Buddha jumps over the wall soup were of a higher grade. When it was cooked, the flow of spirit energy between the ingredients became more turbulent and violent. Therefore, it was even more necessary for Bu Fong to use his mind power to comfort him. Fortunately, Bu Fong's mental energy had broken through the shackles and reached another realm. He had a better grasp of the heaven-grade Buddha jumps over the wall soup. The heaven-grade Buddha jumps over the wall soup was cooked with the meat of a divine soul realm spirit beast. It was truly delicious and precious. Although Bu Fong's ingredients were slightly inferior to Mu Cheng's ingredients in terms of overall quality, with his culinary skills, this slight difference could be easily made up for. It's my turn. The corners of Bu Fong's mouth twitched. He placed the porcelain bowl on the table and gave Mu Chung a meaningful look. Mu Chung was still in shock. She was pulled back to reality by Bu Fong's words. What? Mu Chung was confused. Bu Fong just waved his hand and took a long spoon. He picked up the blue and white porcelain bowl. Swish. He fished out the ingredients from the Buddha jumps over the wall soup. He placed some ingredients into each bowl. The reddish-brown soup poured out. It didn't have any oil, and it wasn't greasy at all. Thick energy was moving inside the soup. That kind of energy made people shudder in fear when they sensed it. What a terrifying energy! Mu Chung could feel it clearly. Her eyes shrank, and her body shivered. Bu Fong placed the Buddha jumps over the wall soup in front of the judges. The blue and white porcelain bowl was navy blue, and it had blue patterns carved on it. It was beautiful and fresh. Chu Changxing gave Bu Fong a deep look. Then his gaze shifted to the Buddha jumps over the wall soup, which was placed in front of him. When the Buddha jumps over the wall soup's lid was lifted, it released a strange phenomenon that excited him. His pores slightly shrank. Chu Changsheng couldn't help but bring his nose closer. The steam rose, hitting his nose, emitting a little bit of steam. Very fragrant, very rich. Chu Changsheng squinted, stroking his beard. Lu Jili picked up the blue and white porcelain bowl. His eyes were filled with seriousness and solemnity. He was carefully sizing it up, scrutinizing it from all angles without any blind spots. However, the more he looked, the more frightened he became. He lifted his head, looking at Bu Fong solemnly. He took a deep breath. This Bu Fong was worthy of being the dark horse chef who had defeated the chefs of the Valley of Gluttony in the Chef's Challenge. His creativity and mental energy were really incomparable, which made people exclaim in admiration. The exquisite part of the Buddha jumps over the wall soup was that it handled the taste, texture, and energy of each ingredient perfectly. It preserved the rich energy, and, at the same time, the taste and texture of the ingredients were all wrapped in the soup. If Mu Cheng's soup and Bu Fong's soup were compared, there were some similarities, but there were also many differences. Bu Fong's Buddha jumps over the wall soup was more comprehensive. Mu Cheng's soup pursued perfection too much. However, there is no such thing as perfection in this world. The so-called perfection always had a flaw. Once that flaw was pierced by a sharp spear, it would completely collapse. And Bu Fong's Buddha jumps over the wall soup was actually that spear. Gulp. Gulp. Lu Jelly solemnly drank a mouthful of the Buddha jumps over the wall soup. After drinking a mouthful of soup, Lu Jelly's originally expressionless and solemn face underwent a huge change in an instant. His eyes abruptly widened, his hair began to float, and the clothes on his body began to flutter. This texture, this taste, this dish was enough to establish Bu Fang's qualification as a special grade chef. The taste, texture, and spirit energy of the ingredients had completely fused together, reaching the pinnacle of perfection. This was Bu Fang's soup? Lu Jili took a deep breath. He calmed down, looking at Bu Fang with a serious expression. Was this fellow's specialty cooking soup? He looked at Mu Cheng with a little pity. Encountering Bu Fang was really her bad luck. Mu Cheng's soup was also perfect. However, encountering Bu Fang's heaven-grade Buddha jumps over the wall soup, it seemed to have met its nemesis. Wah! Swish! An explosive sound rang out. Lu Jili couldn't help but turn to look. Everybody turned to look at Chu Changsheng. There, Chu Changsheng's eyes were wide open, and the clothes he was wearing were torn apart again. Chu Changsheng's hair stood on end. His face was so red that it looked like it could drip blood. He was filled with excitement. He patted the table, standing up. Everyone cried out in surprise. His clothes exploded again. The great elder was conquered by a dish to the point that his clothes exploded. It's not easy at all. Looks like that soup is also very delicious. Elder Chu's reaction is a little intense. Clothes exploding? You guys, keep watching. It's not just clothes exploding. Through the projection formation, the diners were watching the judges' reactions. They were all surprised, and they started to discuss animatedly. Since Chu Changsheng's clothes could explode, they had concluded that only first-grade chefs could make the great elder's clothes explode. If they couldn't, at most, it would just be a piece of cloth. Wah! Delicious soup. Chu Changsheng laughed excitedly. He gulped down the Buddha jumps over the wall soup. With a loud thud, the blue and white porcelain bowl was smashed on the stove. The corner of Bu Fang's mouth twitched, and his face hurt. That was his favorite blue and white porcelain set. He couldn't let that old man break it like that. Swish! The sound of clothes tearing arose again. Everyone was stunned. They turned their heads to look at the great elder with their eyes wide open. There, Chu Changsheng was standing straight. Only strips of cloth were left hanging on his upper body, and the pants on his lower body had exploded. Only a pair of white underwear was left, covering Chu Changsheng's private parts. The great elder's F*King pants exploded. Not only did his clothes explode, but his pants also exploded. Everybody was silent for a while. Then they exploded. No one had thought that the great elder's pants would explode. Wasn't clothes exploding the highest praise he had for food? Phew! Everybody exhaled deeply, trying to exhale the shock in their hearts. Mu Cheng gawked, dropping her jaw as she looked at Chu Changsheng. Her soup had only made Chu Changsheng's clothes explode, but Bu Fang's Buddha jumps over the wall soup had made both his clothes and pants explode without a doubt. Chu Changsheng's attitude had shown everything. Her dish was defeated. Lu Jili was silent. Although he had a good relationship with Mu Cheng, he was a serious and fair person. Mu Cheng's soup wasn't bad, but Bu Fang's Buddha jumps over the wall soup was like a sharp spear, tearing a hole in Mu Cheng's perfect soup. When this hole was torn, the so-called perfection was torn into pieces. Mu Cheng had lost. At this moment, Wenren Shang had also finished drinking his Buddha jumps over the wall soup. His face was flushed, and his eyes were a little intoxicated. How could it be so delicious? The taste and texture of the ingredients had been perfectly combined. In just a blink of an eye, it could provoke people's enjoyment of food, making them completely fall into the trap that Bu Fang had created. It was really intoxicating. After the sixth elder finished drinking, he lay on a chair, not wanting to move. He only wanted to enjoy the rare moment after finishing his Buddha jumps over the wall soup. Fisherman Zhou Cheng was still slowly drinking his Buddha jumps over the wall soup. The more he drank, the more his brows furrowed. The pressure on his body also increased. Bu Fang's strength was really too strong. It was so strong that even Fisherman Zhou Cheng felt a little unconfident. If it was a chef's challenge, could he really win? He had no confidence at all. Just this Buddha jumps over the wall soup had crushed Zhou Cheng's confidence. The judge's silence and various attitudes were vividly displayed on the projection magic array. The results seemed to be self-evident. The entire Phoenix Pavilion was silent. No one had expected such an outcome. Everyone thought that Mu Cheng would definitely win. That was because Mu Cheng's soup should be invincible. However, who the hell was that Bufong? What the hell was that Buddha jumps over the wall soup? Why did it make Mu Cheng's soup lose its splendor? It even made the great elder's pants almost explode. The judges unanimously decided that the winner of this chef's challenge was Bufong. Mu Cheng's soup was really good, but Bufong's Buddha jumps over the wall soup was so good that it made people despair. Mu Cheng was scared out of her wits, her face filled with disbelief. She was really confident. She thought that she wouldn't lose because she had even used her specialty, stewing soup, in a chef's challenge. However, she had never thought that in the path of stewing soup, she had still lost. Moreover, it was a crushing defeat. Why did she lose? Mu Cheng opened her eyes. There was a dazed look in her eyes as she looked at Bufong. Bufong looked at Mu Cheng, nodding his head. The ladle moved, and the sound of the soup shaking resounded. Bufong filled another bowl of Buddha jumps over the wall soup, casually tapping it. That blue and white porcelain bowl was supported by Bufong's mental force and true energy, slowly floating toward Mu Cheng. Mu Cheng's eyes were filled with tears. It was the sadness she felt from her defeat. In the end, it was the scalding Buddha jumps over the wall soup. Mu Cheng's eyes flashed with a dignified look. She had lost, and she admitted it. However, she also wanted to know, how did she lose? Gulp, gulp, gulp. Holding the blue and white porcelain bowl, her red lips parted as she poured the soup into her mouth. Chapter 785. Gulp, gulp, gulp. Mu Cheng's red lips slightly parted, touching the edge of the porcelain bowl, which had become a little hot because of the soup. That slightly hot feeling made Mu Cheng's nostrils involuntarily exhale a heavy breath. The reddish-brown soup of the Buddha jumps over the wall soup rolled down Mu Cheng's lips, entering her mouth and gradually flowing down her throat. The rich fragrance instantly bloomed in her mouth. The taste of the soup, which had been brought out to its peak, made Mu Cheng's entire body stiffen. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. This broth was different from the meat broth that she had meticulously cooked. Every step of this broth was meticulous and strict. The taste of every ingredient in this Buddha jumps over the wall soup was different. There were dozens of ingredients, and Mu Cheng could taste every single one of them. However, it was hard for her to imagine that when these completely different tastes were mixed together, it could actually give her taste buds such a pleasant experience. That kind of taste stimulated the taste buds, teasing the taste buds. It was completely irresistible. As Mu Cheng drank, her eyes narrowed. Her breathing became heavier and heavier, and two blushes appeared on her delicate and fair face. So delicious, Mu Cheng muttered inwardly. The stimulation on her tongue made her body tremble involuntarily. She couldn't help but tremble, as though she was having a spasm. She stood at her spot, and her legs involuntarily tightened. She placed the porcelain bowl down, her face complicated as she looked at Bufong. She admitted defeat. Whether it was the taste, she had lost. The Buddha jumps over the wall soup had so many flavors. With dozens of ingredients mixed together, it could still give people such a refreshing taste. Besides Bufong, perhaps no one else could do it. Inside the projection magic array, everyone saw the expressions on the judges' faces. The entire place became silent, and they especially looked at Mu Cheng's expression after she drank Bufong's Buddha jumps over the wall soup. His expression caused their hearts to sink. They knew that Mu Cheng really didn't have a chance. It seemed like Bufong had really won. In the end, there was no suspense. Mu Cheng also stopped struggling. She knew that she had already lost. Bufong took a step back and took off the velvet rope that tied his hair. His hair immediately fell loose. Chu Changsheng took out a set of clothes from his spatial ring. After putting them on, He calmly looked at Bufong. When he came to be a judge, Chu Changsheng had always brought several sets of clothes. However, he didn't expect that his pants would explode this time. Therefore, he did not put any pants in the spatial ring at all. The space in a spatial ring was very precious, and it would be a waste of space to store extra things. Chu Changsheng always had the habit of tidying up his spatial ring. Chu Changsheng didn't have any pants, so he could only wear a shirt. His underwear swayed slightly in the wind. There was a slight coolness in his balls. In that case, let's announce the winner of this chef's challenge now, Chu Changsheng said solemnly. However, with that set of clothes, no matter how you looked at it, he didn't look proper. Originally, many people were attracted by this chef's challenge. But now, when Chu Changsheng announced the result, everyone's attention was drawn to him. Finally, he announced that Bufong was the winner of this chef's challenge. There was no cheering or applause. Everybody just quietly watched the final result. Even goddess Mu Cheng was defeated. Everybody's face was a little sorrowful. The top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony were almost swept away. Who could stop Bufong's footsteps? Would the top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony be swept away? To the Valley of Gluttony, it was a great humiliation. The Valley of Gluttony had so many talents. So many excellent chefs had been swept away by a young man. Crack! Crack! All of a sudden, everybody held their breaths. They couldn't believe their eyes as they looked at the projection formation. Within the array, they saw the profound theory knife floating in Mu Cheng's hand. That kitchen knife had turned into a disc and was spinning in Mu Cheng's palm. As it spun, the knife also changed its shape. Each shape looked really cool. It was the profound theory knife, which looked like it was full of mechanisms. Under Bufong's feet, the light of the formation sparkled. A moment later, a sparkling crystal knife cabinet floated in the middle of the formation. Bufong raised his hand, holding the knife. With a wave of his hand, Mu Cheng's profound theory knife flew into Bufong's hand. Bufong held the profound theory knife in his hand. He couldn't help but feel the magical features of the knife. As soon as his mind flickered, the profound theory knife made a clanging sound. The round disc spun, and the blade inside the knife was faintly discernible, turning into a knife. It was really interesting. Bufong played with it for a while, then put the profound theory knife into the knife cabinet. There were many kitchen knives in the knife cabinet. Any one of these knives would cause a huge uproar in the Valley of Gluttony. However, so many kitchen knives could only stay in the knife cabinet, gathering dust. Many people felt their hearts ache when they saw it. After putting away the kitchen knives, Bufong strode away. The chef's challenge hadn't ended, and the temporary task hadn't been completed. Bufong didn't have any reason to relax. Bufong walked down from the second floor. Instantly, everyone's gazes landed on Bufong. Looking at Bufong, their faces revealed a complicated expression. They were incomparably shocked. This fellow actually defeated the owner of the Phoenix Pavilion, goddess Mu Cheng. Bufong was very calm. He didn't care about the gazes of the crowd. He was someone who didn't care about the crowd's gazes. He waved his hand, and the crowd made way for him. Bufong slowly walked out of the Phoenix Pavilion. Behind Bufong was the tall and beautiful netherworld woman Yu and a white iron puppet. Xiaoya and Hua were holding hands, following behind Bufong. The corners of Chu Changsheng's mouth twitched. However, he couldn't do anything. He could only watch as Xiaoya, the future Valley Master, follow behind Bufong. The atmosphere in the Phoenix Pavilion became a little awkward. Many people stopped talking, looking at each other. They didn't know what to say. Chu Changsheng and the others also left. This chef's challenge had ended, but Bufong's chef's challenge hadn't ended yet. No one knew who Bufong would challenge in the next chef's challenge. The crowd could only watch the chefs leave the Phoenix Pavilion one after another. Although Mu Cheng was a little disappointed and regretful that the profound theory knife was taken away, she wasn't really sad. She knew that being sad was useless. What she needed was action. In the future chef challenge against Bufong, she needed to defeat Bufong and take back the profound theory knife. That was what she wanted in her heart. Time ticked by slowly. The Valley of Gluttony had 100 things to do. After several days of repair, it had slowly recovered. The entire Valley of Gluttony seemed to be full of vitality. Everyone's face was brimming with excitement. This excitement wasn't because the Valley of Gluttony had finished repairing. It was because of one person, a person who was about to create a miracle, a chef who had challenged the top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony. Today, he had challenged 9 chefs and won all of them. This made the entire Valley of Gluttony burst into an uproar. No one had ever thought that such a dreamlike event could happen. It was a chef's challenge. Each chef's challenge consumed a lot of energy. However, this person had almost defeated the top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony in just a few days. Today, there was only one special grade chef left. Liu Jili hadn't had a chef's challenge yet. If Liu Jili lost, it meant that Bufang had swept the entire Valley of Gluttony. If there was something that could represent the chefs of the Valley of Gluttony, it would be the top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony. If they couldn't represent the top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony, who else could? In these days, something grand had happened in the Valley of Gluttony. The Valley of Gluttony had chosen a new Valley Master. It had been almost 10 years since the previous Valley Master had disappeared. The Valley of Gluttony had been declining. It had never risen or improved. Without a Valley Master, it meant that it had no backbone. The entire Valley of Gluttony couldn't recover from this setback. Although Chu Changsheng was the great elder, he wasn't the Valley Master. There were many things he couldn't decide. He couldn't lead the Valley of Gluttony to recover. This time, the new Valley Master had stirred up many people. Perhaps it was one of the reasons why the Valley of Gluttony was full of vitality. Of course, this time, the Valley Master was just a 10-year-old little girl. However, the Valley of Gluttony had a new Valley Master. However, what gave people a headache and made them not know whether to laugh or cry was that their new Valley Master seemed to like going to a new restaurant. Even the great elder Chu Changsheng couldn't stop her, because that new restaurant wasn't opened by someone else. It was a young chef who had swept the top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony. Everybody was curious. Although that restaurant hadn't opened yet, this gimmick had attracted many people's attention. Of course, people were more interested in the chef's challenge between Bufang and Liu Jili. On the long street of the Valley of Gluttony, several miles away from the Glutton God's building, a restaurant with its tightly shut doors was slowly pushed open. A slender and thin figure strode out of the restaurant. Bufang was wearing the vermilion robe. He rolled up his sleeves, revealing his white, slender arms. Bufang exhaled gently. He turned around, taking several steps back to look at the new restaurant. Fang's little restaurant, a branch of the Valley of Gluttony, has been renovated. Host, please name it. After you have finished the last chef's challenge, you can open for business. If you have more than 1,000 customers on the first day, you will receive an extra reward from the system. Bufang crossed his arms in front of his chest, assessing the Taodai restaurant that the system had just renovated. Instantly, the system's serious voice echoed in his head. A moment later, Bufang exhaled gently. His eyes showed a gleam of anticipation and excitement. More than 1,000 customers on the first day. It seems challenging. I'm looking forward to it. The corners of Bufang's mouth rose as he mumbled. A gust of wind blew, making the vermilion robe flutter on his body. If it's in the Valley of Gluttony, the new branch will be called Taodai Restaurant. Chapter 786. Taodai Restaurant. It was the name of this branch in the Valley of Gluttony. Bufang was too lazy to think about it. Anyway, no restaurant in the entire Valley of Gluttony dared to use Taodai as its name. The others didn't dare, but Bufang did. Rubbing the 2 black and white Taodai bandages on his hands, the corners of Bufang's mouth rose, revealing a playful smile. He still had 2 Taodais on his hands. Who would dare to challenge him if he used Tao Ye's name? Clasping his hands, the vermilion robe fluttered in the breeze. Sunlight shone down from the sky and shone on Bufang's body, making him feel warm and comfortable. As time flew, the temperature dropped a little. Autumn was about to pass, and winter was about to come. The dampness in the air would occasionally be mixed with withered leaves. Bufong looked at the Taotai restaurant, rubbing his chin. Gradually, his eyes showed that he was pondering. It was not an easy task to reach 1,000 customers on the first day of business. Bufong thought that he had to find a way to make the Taotai restaurant famous. As for what method to use, Bufong didn't know yet. However, Bufong guessed that since he had swept the top 10 chefs of the Table of Gluttony, he could attract a lot of customers. Rubbing his hair, Bufong was too lazy to think about this problem. He turned around and walked to the restaurant. He wanted to experience the newly renovated restaurant. His restaurant was several miles away from the Gluttony Gods building. It was in the middle of the long street of the Gluttony God City. There were many restaurants and inns around him. The Phoenix Pavilion wasn't far from the Taodai restaurant. Sometimes, when Bufong basked in the sun at the entrance, he could see Mu Chung leaning on the roof of the Phoenix Pavilion, smiling at him. Not far from him was Wenren Shang's restaurant, which wasn't famous. His restaurant was casual, and because of that, the customers were also casual. Of course, compared to the Phoenix Pavilion, the flow of customers was much smaller. However, there were still some loyal customers. No matter what, Wenren Shang was a top chef on the Tablet of Gluttony. There were many familiar faces around, and Bufong knew all of them. It was very competitive to open a restaurant in such an atmosphere. This was also the difficult problem that the system had given him. Perhaps the opening of Bufong's restaurant would be very popular, but it would not be easy to make a name for himself in the long street where there were so many powerful restaurants. On this street, each restaurant had its specialty dishes, and each restaurant was owned by a chef on the Tablet of Gluttony. It was not difficult for Bufong to get the shop. After all, he had helped the Valley of Gluttony a lot. Of course, Chu Changxing wouldn't reject him if he wanted a shop. Fortunately, Yin Yu was a special grade chef, so he owned many shops in the Glutton God City. Bufong's shop was one of Yin Yu's. After occupying this shop, Bufong started to open another branch. He returned to the restaurant. As soon as he entered the restaurant, he was greeted by a familiar aura. Everything was decorated in the same style as Fong Fong's little store. The Cloud Mist restaurant was also decorated in the same style as Fong Fong's little store. Perhaps it was the system style. It was simple and refreshing, and it was not complicated at all. Bufong's face revealed a satisfied expression. His own restaurant was the most comfortable. Reaching out his hand, Bufong's slender fingers caressed the surface of the clean and spotless table. The moment his fingertips touched the surface, the corners of Bufong's mouth twitched. Far from him, a path understanding tree was swaying. This path understanding tree seemed to be a copy of the Cloud Mist restaurant's path understanding tree. As the path understanding tree swayed, thick spirit energy gushed out. Its power was really terrifying. 8 lines had already appeared on the path understanding tree. The entire tree seemed to have gained sentience. As it swayed, a unique path understanding energy spread out, causing one's mind to feel calm and tranquil. Under the path understanding tree, a pitch-black dog was snoring away. When it snored, the wind blew, causing the leaves of the path understanding tree to gently sway. Next to the black dog was an ancient, pitch-black netherworld ship. That netherworld ship was quietly parked there, as if it had been there since ancient times. It was still the same familiar recipe, and it was still the same familiar smell. The decorations of the restaurant were still as familiar as before. Bufong exhaled contentedly. He pulled a chair and curled up in front of the restaurant. He squinted his eyes, leisurely watching the people coming and going in front of the door, as well as the flowers blooming and wilting. In the distance, 2 small figures dashed over. Bufong's squinted eyes slightly opened, looking in that direction, and the corners of his mouth twitched. Because the 2 people who came were none other than the 2 girls, Xiaoya and Xiaohua. After Bufong saw the 2 of them, he lightly snorted, then continued to squint his eyes. He was thinking about what dish he would cook for the last chef's challenge, as well as how to make the restaurant reach 1,000 customers on its first day of business. Xiaoya and Hua came to the front of the restaurant, already familiar with the place. Xiaoya eagerly pulled a chair and placed it beside Bufong. Sitting on it, she copied Bufong's posture, spreading her legs and squinting her eyes to rest. Hua, who was also the seven-colored sky devouring python, ran to Lord Go's side. She crossed her legs, sat beside the chubby Lord Go, squinted her eyes, and sniffed her nose as if she was enjoying it. Yu poked her head out of the netherworld ship, glancing at Hua, who was leaning against Lord Go's side. A strange expression suddenly appeared on her cold face. Then she yawned and went back to sleep in the netherworld ship. Hades' Era was wearing a long robe, sneakily running from afar. When he saw Bufong, who was curled up in front of the door, his eyes instantly lit up. Then he sped up, dashing in front of Bufong. "Bufong, young man, where's the spicy strip we agreed on?" Hades' Era looked around cautiously, then asked Bufong. Bufong's nostrils flared, and his squinted eyes opened a thin slit. He turned his head to look at Hades' Era, then said calmly, "Spicy strip? Wait until the restaurant's renovations are done." "Isn't the restaurant renovated?" Hades' Era widened his eyes, pointing at the restaurant. "The kitchen has just been renovated, so let it cool down. Isn't it just spicy strips?" "Young people should relax," Bufong yawned, then said. In the distance, a purple figure appeared. Her purple hair fluttered in the wind. "Brother Ha, I finally found you. Why are you hiding from Ziyin?" Saint daughter Ziyin dashed out of the alley, turning her head to see Hades' Era in the distance. Instantly, her face lit up with excitement. She swung her arms, then dashed toward him. "Oh my, youngsters nowadays are really scary." Hades' Era saw Saint daughter Ziyin dashing toward him, as if she wanted to go crazy with him to the ends of the earth. Hades' Era's face instantly changed. "Bufong, young man, we have a deal. Tomorrow, when I come again, you must prepare spicy strips for I. Anyway, youngsters nowadays are too ferocious." Hades told Bufong seriously. Then he turned around, dashing away. Shortly after, he disappeared. Ziyin passed by Bufong. Seeing Bufong taking a nap, she squinted and smiled. "Hello, Owner Bu," said Ziyin. Bufong nodded. Then he saw Ziyin calling him Brother Ha, dashing away. The corners of Bufong's mouth twitched. Youngsters nowadays, outside the Valley of Gluttony, a team of more than 10 people appeared. They jumped off a spirit boat, landing in front of the Valley of Gluttony. The leader of this team was a man carrying a long black bow on his back. His eyes were so fierce. This man had so many spirit talismans on his body, which had immense energy diffusing from them. The Valley of Gluttony. It's a dangerous place. A hint of coldness appeared in the eyes of the man with the longbow on his back. Then he let out a long sigh. The Valley of Gluttony's inheritance had spread all over the hidden dragon royal court. Some people even knew that Mo Lyoji of the heavenly secret holy land was in this Valley of Gluttony. The 3 almighty experts of the wavering light holy land had died tragically in this place. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that this place was a dangerous place. No one knew why Mo Lyoji hadn't left yet. The Valley of Gluttony's inheritance had been taken away, and there was nothing in the Valley of Gluttony that could attract people anymore. Many experts of the Holy Lands had left, but Mo Lyoji still stayed in the Valley of Gluttony. Did he have some unspeakable secret? The man carrying the long black bow squinted. He exhaled a wisp of white air, which meandered like a dragon. However, Yin Chung didn't come here for Mo Lyoji. His real purpose was to ask the holy saint of the ancient Jade Holy Land to investigate the cause of Yin Yu's death and the netherworld creature that had killed the holy saint's clone. The holy saint had told him that he was only here to investigate. However, Yin Chung was Yin Yu's brother. How could he just investigate? You killed the Yin family's people. Of course, you have to pay with your blood. It's just the Valley of Gluttony. They don't even have a half-step creature. How could they stop us? Yin Chung took the long black bow from his back. His eyes were sharp as if he wanted to tear the void. Then a group of people slowly entered the Valley of Gluttony. Chapter 787. The Phoenix Pavilion was bustling and lively as usual. Although Mu Chung had lost to Bu Fong in the Chef's Challenge, it did not affect the Phoenix Pavilion's business too much. Of course, there was still a slight impact. However, this impact was not a big deal to the Phoenix Pavilion. Mu Chung, on the other hand, was happy to be free. However, without the profound theory knife, she had lost some of the joy of cooking. However, after her defeat in the Chef's Challenge, she began to find her own shortcomings. No matter what, she wanted to defeat Bu Fong in the future and win back the profound theory knife. Hence, she had changed her previous precise control over the ingredients. She began to care about the spirit energy and the taste of the ingredients. This was a long process. However, Mu Chung had a tongue that even Bu Fong envied. Hence, it was not difficult for her to learn. As of today, Mu Chung was no longer in charge of the Phoenix Pavilion's cooking. Every day, she practiced her cooking skills. When she was tired, she would lean on the second floor of the Phoenix Pavilion and look down through the window. Over there would always be a lazy figure curled up on a chair, resting. The warm sunlight shone on that figure's face, shining on his not-so-handsome face. It was as if it had some magic that attracted Mu Cheng's gaze, making her lower jaw rest on the windowsill. She was in a daze. "Special Chef Mu, Special Chef Lu sent a letter asking for you." Just as Mu Chung was leaning on the windowsill in a daze, suddenly, a sound came from behind her. Mu Chung was a little bewildered. Turning her head, she saw the restaurant's guard handing her a jade talisman. Mu Chung stood up from the windowsill. Her voluptuous body slightly swayed, and her voluptuous breasts rose and fell. Stretching her body, a soft and tender sound came from the tip of her nose. Her appearance was a feast for the eyes, and the guard's eyes were glued to her. Receiving the jade talisman, his consciousness sank into the jade talisman. Then, he finished reading the contents of the jade talisman. Mu Cheng's eyes brightened. Tomorrow was the Chef's Challenge between Lu Jieli and Bu Fong. Lu Jieli was inviting her over to discuss the dishes for tomorrow's Chef's Challenge. The theme of tomorrow's Chef's Challenge was medicinal cuisine. Medicinal cuisine was one of Lu Jieli's specialties. If one were to ask who was the most knowledgeable in the Valley of Gluttony, it would be Lu Jieli. Lu Jieli wasn't a talented chef, but no one in the Valley of Gluttony could compare to his hard work. The books in Lu Jieli's house could be compared to the entire Valley of Gluttony. The books in his house covered many aspects, including astronomy and geography. Most of it was related to the study of elixirs. As for elixir cuisine, Lu Jieli could be said to have studied it very thoroughly. However, Lu Jieli always told Mu Chung that his knowledge was still not enough. His goal was to one day travel the entire Hidden Dragon continent and record all the medicinal ingredients in the world, thoroughly researching them. Only then would he be able to cook the most perfect elixir cuisine in the entire continent. This was his dream. Mu Chung admired Lu Jieli a lot. Every time she saw Lu Jieli working hard to absorb knowledge, she would feel a sense of guilt from the bottom of her heart. She, Mu Chung, was a talented chef. The so-called talented chef meant that she could easily do things that others had worked hard for a long time. She could not understand the hardships of other people's hard work and sweat. However, she really liked the feeling of working hard. After leaving the Phoenix Pavilion, Mu Chung put on a coat. The coat had a slit, revealing her slender, white, and beautiful legs. She walked past the Tao Dai restaurant and saw Bu Fong, who was lying on a chair and basking in the sun. The corners of her mouth curved into a smile. Then, she turned her head, facing the sun as she walked toward Lu Jieli's restaurant. A gust of wind blew past, causing her hair to become a little messy. Although Bu Fong's appearance had almost overturned the top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony, Mu Chung thought that it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. The top 10 chefs of the Valley of Gluttony had been quiet for too long. They needed a little stimulation, and Bu Fong was exactly that stimulation. This stimulation brought good things, filling the entire Valley of Gluttony with vitality. This was a good sign. The great elder, Chu Changsheng, must have seen this good sign. Otherwise, with the great elder's bad temper, Bu Fong had directly destroyed the top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony. It was already good enough that the old man did not expel Bufong. He even gave Bufong a storefront, allowing him to open a restaurant in the Valley of Gluttony. Mu Chung walked against the wind. All of a sudden, a small team came from afar. Why was it a small team? It was because the other party's formation was too orderly. It was even more orderly than the Valley of Gluttony's guards. The leader was a handsome man. Looking at that man, Mu Cheng's eyes slightly shrank, because she realized that this man seemed to be similar to the dead Yin Yu. Yin Yu? That's right, Yin Yu. It was said that Yin Yu was a disciple of a big family in the ancient Jade Holy Land. Even the Holy Saint of the Holy Land had sent a clone to save Yin Yu. However, in the end, the Holy Saint's clone was shattered by Nether King Erha's palm. Yin Yu was also killed by Chu Changsheng. It could be said that Yin Yu was the special grade chef with the most tragic death in history. According to the Holy Land's character, they would definitely send experts to investigate the cause of Yin Yu's death. The cause of Yin Yu's death was related to Great Elder in that Hades era, who was also Bufong's man. It might implicate Great Elder and Bufong. At that time, when the Holy Land put the blame on them, Grand Elder and Bufong would definitely not have a good ending. Mu Chung frowned. She felt that she needed to do something. She originally wanted to go up and fool that expert. However, when he saw that handsome expert with a dark face and that terrifying aura that prevented strangers from getting close to him, she blinked her eyes, ran her fingers through her hair, and let out a hollow laugh. She turned around and headed back the way she came, intending to escape from this position. As an almighty existence at the half-step divine soul realm, Yincheng naturally saw through Mu Cheng's guilty conscience. Realizing that Mu Cheng was planning to escape, a playful smile involuntarily appeared on his dark face. "You too, go catch that woman," Yincheng ordered. The two guards behind him nodded. A moment later, they took a deep breath, raised their feet, and stomped on the ground. Boom! The ground rumbled. A moment later, the two of them shot out like arrows. Their speed was so fast that people couldn't see them. Like a wild, savage beast, it instantly charged towards Mu Chung, who had just turned around. As soon as Mu Chung turned around, she felt a terrifying aura assaulting her. Mu Cheng's body stiffened. Her exquisite face still wore a hollow smile. What the heck? This lady just turned around. What do they want? Don't bully this beautiful and young lady. These were two guards. Their auras were condensed, and they were actually Divine Soul Realm experts. Their cultivation was extremely terrifying, and they weren't any weaker than Mu Chung. Mu Chung was frightened. As a special chef of the Valley of Gluttony, her cultivation base was really strong. She had reached the Divine Soul Realm with a 3-step soul ladder. However, even with her cultivation base, she was a little scared facing these guards. "Big sister, our Commander Yin wants to see you. Please come with us," said one of the guards with a gentle voice. When Mu Chung heard that, she wasn't happy. She placed her hands on her hips, shouting at the guard's nose. "Who are you calling big sister? Who are you calling? Do you think I'm that old? If you don't apologize to me today, I won't King leave this place." Mu Chung was enraged. She crossed her arms in front of her chest, causing her chest to bulge. Then she sat on the ground. The guard who had just spoken was bewildered. The other guard revealed a sneer on his face. His hand flipped, and a simplified version of the ancient jade lock appeared in his hand. He crushed it. Lightning bolts shot out from the ancient jade lock, falling on Mu Cheng's body in just a blink of an eye. Mu Cheng's face changed. "You young man, what do you want? If you do that again, I'm going to scream." Mu Chung screamed. "I told you that Commander Yin wants to see you. Don't cause trouble." The guard impatiently shook the ancient jade lock in his hand. Instantly, the lightning bolts touched Mu Cheng's body. A numb feeling entered Mu Cheng's body in just a blink of an eye, numbing her entire body. Mu Chung really wanted to sit on the ground and not move. However, the numb feeling from the ancient jade lock forced her to move. If she didn't move, being electrocuted would be so painful that she would cry. Thus, Mu Chung was brought to Yin Cheng. Yin Cheng's face was incomparably handsome. His face looked like it was carved by a knife, and his eyes were like stars. His eyes fell on Mu Chung, who was tied up by the ancient jade lock. You guys are too rude. How could you treat such a beautiful girl like that? If I'm not wrong, you should be the only woman in the top 10 of the Tablet of Gluttony in the Valley of Gluttony. Profound theory knife. Mu Chung. Mu Chung furrowed her brows. The eyes of the man in front of her were too invasive. You're wrong. I'm not profound theory knife, Mu Chung. Mu Chung looked at Yin Chung seriously. Oh, I'm not. Yin Chung narrowed his eyes, a devilish smile hanging on the corners of his mouth. He reached out his hand, his fingers slightly curving as they brushed past Mu Cheng's smooth cheek. Then, he suddenly pinched Mu Cheng's chin. I'm not stupid. How could I not recognize the famous profound theory knife, Mu Chung? Oh, I forgot to tell you that Yin Yu is my little brother. I'm Yin Chung from the ancient Jade Holy Lands, Yin family. Chapter 788. Mu Cheng's chin was grabbed by a strong hand. The ancient jade lock emitted lightning bolts, entangling her body. It made her feel a little numb. The Yin family of the ancient Jade Holy Land was Yin Yu's family? Yin Yu's tragic death in the Valley of Gluttony had attracted the attention of the big families in the Holy Lands. Those families had thousands or even tens of thousands of years of history. Mu Chung thought that she shouldn't expose the Great Elder. Otherwise, the Valley of Gluttony, which had just settled down, would become turbulent again. Thus, Mu Chung revealed a forced smile on her face. Oh, it's the great commander of the Yin family of the ancient Jade Holy Land. It's an honor to meet you. You're the great commander. Why do you have to trouble a weak girl like me? Mu Chung smiled as her mouth was pinched. Yin Chung smiled evilly. He didn't mind Mu Cheng's words at all. Weak girl? She was a special grade chef ranked second on the Tablet of Gluttony. No matter if it was her cultivation base or talent, she was a top-notch existence in the entire Valley of Gluttony. She was a weak girl? Profound theory knife, Mu Chung. Did she think that Yin Chung was a fool? You should tell me who killed my brother. And where is the netherworld creature that destroyed the Holy Saint's clone? Yin Cheng's hand grabbed Mu Cheng's chin, and the sound of bones cracking arose. Mu Chung was in so much pain that tears rolled down her cheeks. This guy better not fall into my hands. Otherwise, I'll let him know why the flowers are always so red. The Yin family's people were all bad people. Yin Cheng's face was so cold, and his body emitted a murderous aura. That terrifying aura almost suffocated Mu Chung. If Yin Chung hadn't suppressed half of his aura to avoid alerting the enemy, his aura would have shot up to the sky like a tornado. An existence at the half-step divine spirit realm was almost invincible in a place like the Valley of Gluttony. Yin Chung could have acted recklessly. However, since the Holy Saint's clone was destroyed here, Yin Yu had to be more cautious. The Holy Saint had many clones. Although they weren't strong, they weren't much weaker than Yin Chung. It was because the Holy Saint's real body was too strong, and his clones were also stronger. The Holy Saint's clone was destroyed, which meant that the netherworld existence hidden in the Valley of Gluttony had the power to kill him. Hence, he had to be careful. First, he had to do a thorough investigation. Unlock this ancient jade lock for me. I'll tell you, said Mu Chung as she glared at Yin Chung. If glares could eat people, then Yin Chung would have been devoured so badly that not even his bones were left. Yin Chung didn't hesitate. With a snap of his fingers, the ancient jade lock was unlocked. When the ancient jade lock was unlocked, Mu Chung felt as if she could see the sun again. Her breathing became smoother. Can you tell me now? Yin Chung pinched Mu Cheng's chin. In the next moment, he extended his other hand and caressed Mu Cheng's face. Mu Chung glared at him. Her red lips parted slightly. The next moment, with a wave of her hand, a huge black shadow appeared from her space ring. The appearance of that enormous body gave everyone a fright. Yin Cheng's body stiffened, and the hand that was pinching Mu Cheng's chin loosened. Mu Cheng's eyes were cold. The other didn't come with good intentions. If so, she didn't need to stay and say anything. Running away was the most important thing. Its huge body was sticky and stained with sticky and smelly mucus. Yin Cheng was careless, and the sticky liquid stuck to him. Instantly, his face changed. His handsome face twisted. Damn it! What the hell is that thing? Yin Cheng was enraged. His palm glowed, turning into a sharp claw that furiously swiped at that giant body. With a bang, the huge body was crushed by his claw. Flesh and blood flew everywhere. The black blood and the black stench almost covered the entire sky. It was as if a huge bomb had exploded. Yin Cheng, who bore the brunt, was petrified at his spot. He didn't want to live anymore. Although his body was wriggling, a thin layer of true energy had fallen off and expelled the filth from his body. However, if one looked closely, they would see that Yin Cheng's eyes were bloodshot at this moment. He was King tricked by that woman. Go after her. Go after her. When you catch that woman, break her legs and pull out her tendons. Yin Cheng was enraged. He shouted at the guards next to him. The guards beside him didn't look much better than Yin Yu. They simply didn't expect that such a huge thing would actually spray out such filth and stench when it was crushed. At this moment, they felt that even their breaths were stinky. That's a divine soul realm spirit beast with a 5-step soul ladder. Deep-sea smelly sheetfish. Yin Cheng's face was cold, his mouth shivering. The deep-sea smelly sheetfish was also known as the stink bomb. It was a disgusting thing that could kill people. That woman carried such a disgusting thing with her. What a waste of that woman's beautiful body. The two guards pulled themselves together. They wiped the stench off their bodies. A moment later, the tips of their feet touched the ground, and their bodies shot out like a rocket. Their speed was really fast. They dashed in the direction Mu Cheng had left. Mu Cheng ran as fast as she could. She had taken off her coat. Her ample breasts bounced up and down as she ran, which was really eye-catching. Rumble, rumble. A rumbling sound rang out behind him. Mu Cheng's face changed. Indeed, the deep-sea smelly sheetfish couldn't disgust them. They stunk, but they still wanted to chase after her. Mu Cheng's heart jumped. She accelerated. She didn't want to be caught by those disgusting guards. Rumble. The guards were really fast. However, their bodies were pitch black, and they emitted a stench that couldn't be washed off. That stench diffused, making the grass and trees around shrink. Buzz, buzz. Looking at Mu Cheng, who was running crazily in front of them, the two guards flipped their hands. Instantly, a jade talisman appeared. That jade talisman emitted a dazzling light, and mysterious patterns moved on it. Stop! One of the guards shouted. His eyes widened, and his face was full of ruthlessness. This old lady's brain must have gone haywire to stop. You two *T stain things should stop. Don't be disgusting, okay? Mu Cheng's long hair fluttered. Her long legs spread open as she dashed forward. She didn't even turn her head to look at them. The faces of the two guards darkened. They really had the urge to curse out loud. Who was she talking about? You were the one with *T. Your whole family is covered in *T. The guards were so angry that their kidneys ached. Things had become like this because of that woman. Now, that woman was still looking down on them. Simply unforgivable. Ancient jade lock. Pull. The jade talisman floating in front of the guard immediately emitted a brilliant light. Blue lightning arcs danced on it, and in the next instant, lightning burst forth. It was as if it had transformed into a long whip as it lashed at Mu Cheng. Even the air was cracked at this moment. Mu Cheng was frightened. It's that King ancient jade lock again. Was there no end to this group of people? This old lady swore that the people she hated the most in this life were the people from the ancient jade Holy Land. Later on, whenever she saw the people from the ancient jade Holy Land, she would beat them up. Of course, if she couldn't beat them, she would run. Boom. Lightning bolts lashed around Mu Cheng's body. The ground cracked, sending sand and pebbles everywhere. Mu Cheng's figure rapidly moved. She was extremely fast. Her long legs stomped on the ground violently as she violently changed directions. Unexpectedly, the ancient jade lock couldn't hit her at all. The other guard's eyes focused. He opened his mouth and spurted out a stinky breath. His hand flipped, and a jade talisman floated in front of him. True energy rolled. A moment later, that jade talisman shot out. Heavenly suppressing talisman. Buzz. The guard's hand shook. That jade talisman quickly pressed down on Mu Cheng's position. The air seemed to squeak as if it couldn't bear the pressure. Mu Cheng's face was filled with fear. Damn it. These people really wanted to kill this old lady. Did they really need to do that? I just threw them a deep-sea, smelly sheetfish. Mu Cheng's body moved quickly, but she couldn't dodge that heavenly shaking talisman. The ancient jade holy land was good at formations and spirit talismans. This heavenly shaking talisman and the ancient jade lock were both symbolic formations of the ancient jade holy land. Instantly, Mu Cheng felt like her entire body was filled with lead. She couldn't move at all. Her legs couldn't move at all. Boom, boom. The ancient jade lock lashed on her body, tearing her clothes. Her tender skin was now scorched black. Mu Cheng was enraged. She was so angry that her chest shook. She gritted her teeth and threw out two huge black shadows behind her in succession. The guard's eyes focused, and he immediately took action. However, after taking action, the guard finally got it. Holy SH*T. Was that a F*King deep sea smelly sheetfish? Was this woman sick? Why did she bring so many deep sea smelly sheetfish with her? What kind of weird taste was that? However, it was too late to stop. Boom! The deep sea smelly sheetfish exploded in the air. Instantly, it turned into black chunks of meat that filled the sky. The stench also shot up into the sky. As the two guards were hit, their movements became sluggish. Mu Cheng took advantage of this opportunity to shout. True energy twirled around her body as she soared up into the sky. Above her head, the white soul ladder emerged one by one. After an explosion, Mu Cheng directly broke the heavenly shaking talisman's restraint, dashing away. Dragging his battered and charred body, he charged towards the long street. The two guards' faces darkened this woman. She really deserved to die. Stomping their feet, the true energy on their bodies diffused, expelling the black smoke. The stench was so stinky that they almost vomited. With a rumble, they shot out like cannonballs. Gluttony God City's long street. People were walking back and forth on the long street. All of a sudden, the crowd screamed in fear. Everyone moved to the side in horror as they stared dumbfoundedly at the graceful figure that cut a sorry figure. That person's figure seemed a little familiar. Someone took a closer look and instantly screamed. Isn't that special Chef Mu of the Phoenix Pavilion? How did she become like this? How could she be so pathetic? Her clothes, why are they so torn? Everybody was wondering what kind of inhumane things special Chef Mu had to endure in the future. Tao Tai Restaurant Bufong was lying on his chair. The sunlight shone on his face, making it blurry. He felt a wave of warmth covering his entire body. All of a sudden, Bufong was a little bewildered. He opened his eyes, looking into the distance. Over there, a graceful figure cut a sorry figure. Her torn clothes fluttered in the air, revealing a spring scene. As soon as Mu Cheng saw Bufong, her eyes brightened. It was as though she had seen her savior. Swinging her arms, she dashed toward him. Owner Bu, save me. Chapter 789. Owner Bu, hurry up and save this old lady. Mu Cheng strode forward, her long, white legs swaying under the sunlight. She looked very mesmerizing. Mu Cheng's body was charred black, and her clothes were torn. Her fair and smooth skin was faintly discernible, causing quite a few people to involuntarily stare at her. Although Mu Cheng cut a sorry figure, she was still as beautiful as ever. Even the way she strode forward was full of beauty. Bufong's squinted eyes widened. He was startled. What was that woman yelling? Why did it sound so strange? Wait a minute. That woman seemed to be Mu Cheng from the opposite building. Bufong straightened his body. Looking at Mu Cheng running toward him, he tilted his head. Many people in the surroundings sucked in a breath of cold air as horror surfaced in their eyes. Because they found that behind Mu Cheng, There were 2 lumps of black sh*t running as fast as lightning. F*ck. It's so F*king stinky. As the 2 lumps of sh*t passed, the glutton god city's long street was filled with the stench. Each diner was so disgusted that they wanted to lean against the toilet wall and puke. What kind of smell was that? Did those 2 people just crawl out of a sh*t pit? They even chased after Special Chef Moo. Why did Special Chef Moo go to a sh*t pit to provoke those 2 lumps? Everybody pinched their noses, looking at the chase on the long street suspiciously. Some people wanted to make a move. After all, the one being chased was their goddess. If they could save their goddess, perhaps they could win her favor. How wonderful would that be? Unfortunately, the people who wanted to make a move lost their desire to do so when they saw the 2 lumps of sh*t moving. They were afraid that they would dirty their hands if they made a move. Boom, boom, boom. Lightning swept out, pounding on the long street that had just been repaired. The broken stones on the street were sent flying everywhere. Mu Cheng's body moved sideways, her face embarrassed. She had planned to run toward the Phoenix Pavilion, but when she reached the entrance, she suddenly remembered that the Phoenix Pavilion didn't have any experts. If she brought those 2 lumps of sh*t inside, then the Phoenix Pavilion would be finished, and she wouldn't be able to escape. Thus, at the last moment, Mu Cheng chose to change. Hence, she flew in the direction of the Tao Tai restaurant. She wasn't worried that Bufong would be implicated because of her. After all, Bufong had a terrifyingly fat black dog with him. As long as the black dog used its claws, the 2 guards would be as weak as paper. That black dog was the real boss. Mu Cheng felt that she should hold on tightly to the big boss's leg. Mu Cheng finally understood how good it felt to have a thigh to hug. Therefore, Mu Cheng decided that after this, she would definitely go back and cook a good dish to reward the boss. At the same time, she could improve their relationship and form a good impression. Perhaps the next time she was chased by someone, the boss would be able to strike again. Black smoke lingered in the distance, and the stench seemed to have transformed into a black cloud that covered the sky and covered the sun as it rushed toward the Tao Tai restaurant. Bufong's face instantly darkened. That stench lingered in his nose, and the corner of Bufong's mouth instantly twitched. It was so F*king stinky. Looking at the direction in which Mu Cheng was running, it was in the direction of the Tao Tai restaurant. Bufong was stunned. Then, his eyes lit up, and a hint of speechlessness appeared on his face. What was Mu Cheng doing? Why did she bring 2 fellows who had fallen into a manure pit to meet him? Moreover, what was the meaning of the other party's route? Bufong took a deep breath, and he couldn't help but stand up from his chair. Xiaoyu was startled. She opened her eyes, and in an instant, she saw the 2 guards covered in a dense black stench. Owner Bu, save me. Mu Cheng screamed with a hoarse voice. No one can save you. Sky-shaking talisman, suppress. One of the guards fiercely crushed the talisman. Instantly, the magic array within the talisman collapsed. That talisman magic array rapidly expanded, and in an instant, it covered the entire space. Boom! Mu Cheng was about to reach Bufong's figure, and she instantly felt a huge pressure. Mu Cheng raised her hand, and her eyes revealed a panicked expression. However, the gravity suddenly pressed down, and Mu Cheng was instantly pressed onto the ground. She was completely unable to move. With a cracking sound, the crushed stones on the ground were all crushed by Mu Cheng's body. The long lightning whip seemed to transform into a light blue dragon. With a huge roar, it smashed toward Mu Cheng, who was pressed onto the ground by the pressure of the heaven-suppressing talisman. It seemed as though it wanted to whip Mu Cheng to death. Everyone was so shocked that they couldn't be any more shocked, and they all let out cries of surprise. Mu Cheng also felt despair. Lying on the ground, a deathly gray color appeared in her eyes. It seemed like she was really going to die this time. Xiao Bai, chase these 2 lumps away. They're blocking the door and affecting our business, Bufong calmly said. Suddenly, just as his voice fell from the cloud mist Tao Tai restaurant behind Bufong, a terrifying aura spread out. That aura was incomparably vigorous, and it was extremely stable. All of a sudden, a tearing sonic boom rang out, and a red light shot out rapidly. The guard didn't expect that someone would dare to save Mu Chung in that area. It was an iron rod that had been branded red, and it was densely covered in profound talisman markings. A rumbling sound echoed. The guard holding the ancient jade lock was pierced by that stick, and a big hole appeared on his chest. The guard screamed miserably. The ancient jade lock was broken, and his entire body was smashed by that red-hot iron stick. He was lying on the ground, coughing blood. His vitality was draining rapidly. After the war god's stick pierced through a guard, it rolled in the air, and a giant iron puppet caught it. The guard who was controlling the heaven-shocking talisman did not expect that an unforeseen event would occur in this originally relaxed chase. His companion was actually pierced through by a rod. It was too painful. The guard's hand shivered. However, the metal wings on Xiao Bai's back slightly flapped, and the red-hot iron stick roared one more time. The air shook, and in the next moment, it seemed to be torn apart. The war god's stick smashed the remaining guard to death. Mu Chung was dumbstruck, lying at her spot. She was bewildered as she watched the two guards, who were stained with the deep-sea smelly sheepfish's mucus, get killed by two sticks. Xiao Bai's metal wings flapped, and he landed on the ground, holding the red-hot iron stick in his hand. Two guards had died, just like that. Anyway, it's good that they're dead. This stench is unbearable. Mu Chung crawled up from the ground. Looking at Bu Fang's calm face, she couldn't stay calm anymore. Her ample breasts shivered unceasingly. She said to Bu Fang seriously, "You should be careful. The Holy Land has sent someone to investigate." It could be said that Bu Fang was the one who had offended Yin Yu the most. Mu Chung didn't want Bu Fang to be killed just like that. But now, it seemed that her worries were unnecessary. This iron puppet was actually so strong. It was hard to say who would be the one to kill who. In the distance, a group of people slowly walked over. The leader was Yin Cheng, whose face was dark and filled with rage. Yin Cheng's group walked over, their faces beaming with excitement. Their auras were vigorous and vigorous. Energy twirled around their bodies. Yin Cheng's face was so dark that it could drip water. The deep-sea smelly sheepfish's smell was too stinky. It made him, the commander of a holy land, feel ashamed. Yin Cheng's group was really imposing and powerful. However, as they walked, the stench soared into the sky, making people cover their noses in disgust. It was as if they were disgusted by a bunch of moving feces. Yin Cheng's mood became worse. The way people looked at him with disdain made him feel a flame of anger burning in his heart. At this moment, he hated that he couldn't capture Mu Chung, break her tendons, and torture her thoroughly. However, as soon as Yin Chung saw a white iron puppet, he attacked without any warning. Instantly, he pierced through the two guards who held the heavenly shaking talisman and the ancient jade lock, killing them instantly. At this moment, Yin Chung was completely bewildered. A moment later, everybody took in a breath of cold air. Yin Chung pulled himself together from his daze. His face darkened. Someone dared to kill the ancient jade Holy Land's people in front of him. Damn it, Xiao Bai's chubby body stood next to Bu Fang. He held the stick with one hand while the other rested on the back of Bu Fang's chair. His eyes twinkled. Today, Xiao Bai was comparable to an almighty expert. How could a small trick like this make Xiao Bai sink? Yin Yu was so angry. However, as he walked over, his face changed several times. He didn't make a move. When he met Bu Fang's calm eyes, he felt his heart palpitate. It was as if he had been thrown into an ice cave. That feeling was extremely dangerous. Why did he have such a feeling? Yin Cheng's heart trembled unceasingly. That sense of danger grew stronger and stronger. Within his powerful psychic energy, he seemed to sense an incomparably huge psychic energy fluctuation, like an unshakable, towering mountain. That fluctuation made Yin Cheng, who wanted to take action, stop. It was an extreme sense of danger, which came from the telepathic connection of an array grandmaster. Yin Cheng stopped all the guards who were about to make a move. He glanced at the two dead guards, and the corners of his mouth twitched. Then, he lifted his head, looking straight at them. His eyes went past Xiao Bai, falling on Bu Fong one more time. That mysterious restaurant made him so scared, and the young man in front of him was the owner of that restaurant. No wonder the holy saint had told him to keep a low profile during the investigation. He didn't expect that this little restaurant could bring him such a terrifying pressure. Chapter 790. Yin Cheng's heart shuddered, and he felt his hair stand on end. The pressure this restaurant brought him made his skin tighten. He didn't know why he had such a feeling. Was it because of the iron puppet in front of him, which had smashed his guards to death with 2 strikes of a stick? Observing the restaurant, Yin Cheng took a deep breath when he saw the expressionless young man standing in front of the restaurant with his hands clasped behind his back. This restaurant was definitely strange. As they had just arrived at the Valley of Gluttony, they didn't have time to gather information. Thus, they didn't know much about this restaurant. Thus, Yin Cheng didn't dare to act rashly. However, the death of the 2 guards had enraged Yin Cheng. Of course, he wouldn't leave that easily. His eyes fell on Mu Cheng, who was crawling up from the ground. As if she could feel his sharp gaze, Mu Cheng didn't say anything. She got up and ran toward the Taodai restaurant. After a while, he disappeared without a trace. Yin Cheng's eyes became colder. His body reeked. However, after such a short time, he seemed to have gotten used to this stench. Mu Cheng definitely knew something. Yin Cheng felt that he had to capture this woman. Since it was a restaurant in front of him, he would go there and have a taste of its dishes. The tense atmosphere seemed to disperse in just a blink of an eye. Yin Cheng looked at Bu Fong, a smile hanging on his face. He strode toward Bu Fong. You must be the owner of this restaurant, right? Since the restaurant is open, I'm sure it's open for business. If so, can I enter? Yin Cheng asked with a smile. Bu Fong was a little bewildered. He glanced at Yin Cheng, the corners of his mouth rising. No, answer Bu Fong. No. Yin Cheng was bewildered. The guard behind him were also bewildered. One of the hot-tempered guards directly released his aura, coldly looking at Bu Fong. It seemed like he would attack him if he didn't agree. However, Yin Cheng stopped him. Before he knew the background of this restaurant and this young man, Yin Cheng wouldn't take action. Why can't I enter? Isn't the restaurant open for business? Yin Cheng looked at Bu Fong in confusion. If the other party was really trying to protect that woman, Yin Cheng would have to make a move no matter how afraid he was. Although the restaurant was dangerous, as the saying goes, wealth comes from danger. If there was no danger to remind people, how could they grow? You stink too much. Also, the restaurant hasn't opened yet. Bu Fong walked a few steps and returned to the chair. He sat down, curled up on it, and said lazily, Not open for business yet? The main point was this guy complaining about the stench on their bodies? They were smelly, but what could they do? They were also in despair. The blood and stench of the deep-sea smelly sheepfish could not be washed away by Jinqi, and even water might not be able to wash away the stench easily. Therefore, the stench would follow them for a long time. But the main culprit that caused them to stink was the woman who had crawled into the restaurant. My restaurant hasn't opened for business yet. Please leave. Come back when it's open for business. Bu Fong narrowed his eyes. The warm sunlight shone on his face as he said nonchalantly. His words made Yin Cheng's eyes flash with sharpness. He was the great commander of the ancient Jade Holy Land, an existence at the half-step divine spirit realm, but he was repeatedly refused to enter a restaurant. People said that the chefs of the Valley of Gluttony were arrogant and savage. Now, it seemed that they lived up to their name. Unfortunately, in front of absolute power, their arrogance would be crushed into dregs. Then if I insist on going in, Yin Cheng clasped his hands, his eyes sharp. Insist on going in, the corners of Bu Fong's mouth rose. He raised his hand, patting Xiao Bai's belly, who was standing next to him. Yin Cheng grinned. His slightly tanned face was set off by his big white teeth, which made him look very white. Your Excellency, you might look down on me a little. It's just an almighty puppet. I'm not sure it can stop me, Yin Cheng said. All of a sudden, from a distance, a figure was walking toward them. That figure's robe was unbuttoned, revealing his fair skin. His face was flushed, and he was holding a bamboo flask in his hand. From time to time, he would pour wine into his mouth. The corners of Imo Lyoji's mouth rose. He felt that the Valley of Gluttony was indeed a paradise. There were so many kinds of delicious food and good wine that tickled people's taste buds. Imo Lyoji had almost lost himself in this soft land filled with delicious food. However, he was lucky that he had a little bit of consciousness left. He knew why he came to the Valley of Gluttony. That was why he would go to Bufong's place every day to chat with Bufong. He planned to kidnap Bufong and bring him back to the heavenly secret holy land. No matter what, Bufong was the saintess inner demon. Granny Imo had given him a task, so of course, he would try his best to complete it. Imo Lyoji? Of course, Yanqing knew Imo Lyoji. He was an outstanding character in the heavenly secret holy land. Not only was he intimidating, but he also knew how to use the heavenly secret holy land's astrolabe to calculate. He was an existence that could predict things like a god. When the experts of the other holy lands met the people of the heavenly secret holy land, they would be cautious and afraid of them, because the people of the heavenly secret holy land were good at calculating. Who knew if the people of the heavenly secret holy land had sold them out or not? They were still happily counting their money. The information mentioned Imo Lyoji, but they didn't expect that he really existed. As soon as Imo Lyoji appeared, he pulled a chair, holding a bamboo flask of wine. He sat next to Bufong, squinting at Bufong. Owner Bu, I sincerely invite you to visit the heavenly secret holy land. Granny Imo of the holy land can't wait any longer. Please give me face, okay? Imo Lyoji said. Bufong looked at Imo Lyoji with disdain. Can't you finish your wine first? Every day, you drink this low-grade wine in front of my shop. It will lower the standard of my shop. Who will come to my shop to buy wine in the future? Bufong's words made sense. Imo Lyoji rubbed his chin, bewildered for a while. But this wine was taken from Wenren Shang's place. How did it become a low-grade wine? Imo Lyoji hiccuped, his face bewildered. Yin Cheng frowned when he saw that Imo Lyoji and Bufong were familiar with each other. Imo Lyoji was so polite to Bufong. Moreover, he said that Granny Imo would wait for Bufong to go to the heavenly secret holy land. Of course, Yin Cheng knew Granny Imo of the heavenly secret holy land. She was the top existence of the royal court, an expert who could predict things like a god. How could Yin Cheng not know her? Although Granny Mo's existence wasn't as good as the holy saints, she couldn't investigate much. Thus, after listening to Imo Lyoji's words, Yin Cheng became more cautious. Apparently, this little chef had a big background. His initial impulse to make a move immediately dissipated. He should wait and see. Yin Cheng gave Bufong a deep look, then left with his guards. Although Yin Cheng was enraged that 2 of his guards were killed, he was still a cautious person. If this little chef had the netherworld creature that could kill the Holy Saint clone, he would have to die here. The Holy Saint had asked him to investigate, so he couldn't ruin the Holy Saint's plan just because he messed around. Imo Lyoji was a little skeptical as he watched Yin Cheng and the others leave. He opened the bamboo tube and gulped down a mouthful of wine. The thick aroma of wine arose. Bufong sniffed. The corners of his mouth rose as he shook his head disdainfully. The sky gradually turned dark. 2 crescent moons rose from the horizon and quickly hung high in the sky. Inside and in, Yin Cheng's upper body was bare. Many spirit herbs were stuck on his body. He wanted to use the fragrance of these herbs to wash away the stench. However, it didn't work. The stench on his body was like sticky **T, which made Yin Cheng go crazy. The Holy Saint clone was destroyed by the restaurant owner's friend, and Chu Changshan killed Yin Yu with 1 slap. Yin Cheng's face was dark and gloomy. A terrifying aura was moving around his body. Chu Changshan of the Valley of Gluttony. Seems like I can only kill him first. That netherworld creature seems to be protecting the restaurant owner. I can kill that old man, Chu Changshan, first. The one who killed my brother must die. Yin Cheng put down the report in his hand, exhaling deeply. His face was so cold. Chu Changsheng was just an almighty. If Yin Cheng took action, he could easily kill that old man. In Yin Cheng's eyes, ordinary almighties were just ants. Inside the Gluttony Gods building in the Valley of Gluttony, moonlight shone on the Gluttony Gods building from outside. The cold moonlight seemed to have a cold intent. When it shone on people, they felt like they were wearing a cold veil. Chu Changsheng stretched his body, standing up from the desk. His upper body was bare, revealing his bulging muscles. As his muscles moved, a terrifying aura diffused. Chu Changsheng clasped his hands, walking to the window. His white hair and beard fluttered in the wind. His deep eyes gazed at the scene outside the Gluttony Gods building. Today, the Valley of Gluttony was full of vitality. The Valley of Gluttony, which had been declining for so many years, seemed to have the momentum to rise again. To Chu Changsheng, it was something that made his heart and soul happy. Although Valley Master Xiao Yu was still young and couldn't handle many things properly, Chu Changsheng was here. Even if he had to risk his old life, Chu Changsheng would try his best to help Xiao Yu. There was a creaking sound. The door was pushed open. Chu Changsheng smiled, clasping his hands. He turned around and looked at the door. "You're back. Come in," Chu Changsheng said gently. Then a small head came in from outside the door. There was a memory crystal inlaid between the eyebrows of that head. This little girl was none other than Xiao Yu, who had stayed at Bu Fang's place for the whole day. Why didn't come back with her? Xiao Yu pulled a long face, sticking out her tongue. She carefully walked into the room and stood in front of Chu Changsheng. "You've played enough. Let's start today's study. You little girl, you're really naughty, but you're still so young. It's hard for you to be the Valley Master." Chu Changsheng lovingly rubbed Xiao Yu's head, gently exhaling. In Chu Changsheng's eyes, Xiao Yu was like his granddaughter. However, Xiao Yu was the new Valley Master of the Valley of Gluttony. She had to learn how to manage the Valley of Gluttony. Chu Changsheng hoped that Xiao Yu could bring the Valley of Gluttony to greater glory. "Grandpa Chu, Xiao Yu is going to study now." Xiao Yu stayed at Bu Fang's place for the whole day. She was very happy. Sometimes, the memory crystal would glow, and many memories would flow into Xiao Yu's head. This little girl had matured a lot. She also understood the heavy responsibility on her shoulders. Chu Changsheng smiled. The little girl had finally grown up. He patted Xiao Yu's head. All of a sudden, Chu Changsheng's eyes focused. His nose twitched as he smelled a stench. This stench made his face a little strange. Slowly, he turned his head to look outside the window. There, a figure slowly took out a black longbow, indifferently looking at Chu Changsheng. The longbow was fully drawn, and terrifying energy gathered quickly. That person's hair fluttered in the wind as he coldly looked at Chu Changsheng. "Are you the one who killed my brother Yinyu? If that's the case, then you'll be buried with him." As soon as he said that, Chu Changsheng's eyes shrank. A pitch-black arrow suddenly appeared in front of Chu Changsheng. He couldn't dodge it. Puff! Blood splashed 3 feet. Chu Changsheng's pupil shrank. A big hole appeared in his chest. Chapter 791. A pitch-black arrow shot out soundlessly, not stirring up any wind or waves in the air. Chu Changsheng's eyes shrank. He raised his hand to protect Xiao Yu, who was by his side. His body shook hard. Blood spurted from his chest. The black arrow had pierced through his chest, leaving a big, bloody hole. Blood was still gushing from a wound. "Who are you?" Chu Changsheng's face didn't change. He lifted his head to look at the man holding a longbow outside the window under the moonlight. Yin Cheng looked at Chu Changsheng, the corners of his mouth curling up. A strange look appeared in his eyes. He didn't expect Chu Changsheng to be so interesting. His chest was pierced through, and his vitality was draining fast. However, his face didn't change at all. "If you hadn't killed my brother, I wouldn't have attacked you," Yin Cheng said indifferently. A moment later, he pulled the bowstring one more time. The string twanged. The silent black arrow pierced through the air, aiming at Chu Changsheng. Chu Changsheng's eyes were as bright as torches. They were like two bright lamps in the dark night. Traitors should all die. I don't care whose brother he is. I, Chu Changsheng, have a clear conscience. Chu Changsheng roared, his hair fluttering in the wind. In the next moment, a terrifying aura suddenly burst forth from his body. Valley Master, retreat. Go and find Owner Boo. After today, I can't help you anymore. I hope you can bring our Valley of Gluttony to glory. Chu Changsheng's eyes were like torches. He raised his hand, and a wave of air hit Xiaoya. Xiaoya's eyes shrank. She felt a force pushing her out of the Gluttony Gods building. There was a clang. The walls of the Gluttony Gods building shattered, and Xiaoya's body flew out. That wave of energy slowly sent her to the ground. Xiaoya's legs softened. Her big eyes gazed at the Gluttony Gods building, and tears rolled down her cheeks. Grandpa Chu. After sending Xiaoya away, Chu Changsheng roared. His white hair and beard fluttered in the wind. He was in high spirits. His mind flickered, and the soul ladder emerged above his head. 8 steps of the soul ladder hovered in the air. A double-handled kitchen knife appeared in his hand. It spun in his hand as if it wanted to cut everything into pieces. Pucci. The black arrow silently pierced through Chu Changsheng's body one more time, making him stagger backward several steps. A deep pit was created on the ground. The arrow had pierced through the Glutton Gods building. People from the Holy Lands, everyone dares to bully my Valley of Gluttony. Today, even if I have to die, I will bite a piece of your flesh. Chu Changsheng's mouth was bleeding, and his eyes were bloodshot. He took a step forward, and the ground of the Gluttony Gods building collapsed. Boom! His aura surged. Chu Changsheng's glabella sparkled. Shortly after, the veins covered his body, and his aura rocketed again. In just a blink of an eye, Chu Changsheng had burst out his strongest power. Yin Cheng had given him a lot of pressure. The other's power was too strong. The feeling he gave off was like a god. Chu Changsheng knew that he wouldn't be able to escape today. However, Chu Changsheng was enraged. He wasn't resigned. He was enraged. After sending Xiaoya away, he decided to go all out. Looking at Chu Changsheng, who was dashing toward him, Yin Cheng's eyes were still indifferent. The moonlight shone on his body, making him look like he was wearing a thin veil. The moonlight shone on his chiseled face, making it look even sharper. It's no use. You're too weak, Yin Cheng said indifferently. Yin Cheng said calmly. An ancient, pitch-black longbow rested in his hand. Yin Cheng's slender fingers gently stroked the longbow, pulling the bowstring to its fullest. A moment later, he released his hand. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Countless black arrows shot out from the longbow. 1 arrow, 2 arrows, 3 arrows, they all pierced through Chu Changsheng, who was dashing toward him. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Chu Changsheng coughed blood. His eyes were as bright as stars. His aura surged, and the 8-step soul ladder above his head soared. He headed straight toward Yin Cheng. Yin Cheng's face was emotionless as he continuously pulled the bowstring. Chu Changsheng's face was ferocious as he used his body to block the arrows. Under the moonlight, the two of them approached each other rapidly. All of a sudden, Yin Cheng's hand stopped pulling the bowstring. The corners of his mouth twitched, and a gleam of anger flashed in his eyes. He put down the longbow and raised his hand. Slowly, his hand covered Chu Changsheng's head, which was less than 2 inches away from his nose. Chu Changsheng's face was ferocious as he tightly grabbed Yin Cheng's hand that was holding the bow. Chu Changsheng of the Valley of Gluttony. I, Yin Cheng, will remember you. Exhaling softly, Yin Cheng said seriously. A moment later, true energy shot out from his hand. Boom! Chu Changsheng's body fell from the sky. Swish! Chu Changsheng grabbed Yin Cheng's hand and tore off a piece of Yin Cheng's sleeve. His 4 limbs were spread open, and his chest was full of bloody holes. His blood had almost dried up. Chu Changxing's white hair and beard were dyed with blood. His dry hair fluttered in the wind. His eyelids were heavy as he looked at the two crescent moons in the night sky. The corners of his mouth rose. Xiaoya was bewildered as she watched Chu Changxing's body fall from the sky. She was scared out of her wits. Everything that had happened was beyond her imagination. All of a sudden, a buzzing sound came from a distance. Hua trod on the wind, her triflower snake eyes moving fast. In just a flash, she arrived by Xiaoya's side. Seeing Hua, Xiaoya felt as though she had found a life-saving straw. Hua, save the great elder. Save Grandpa Chu. Xiaoya's voice carried a sobbing tone as tears flowed from her eyes. Yin Cheng frowned. Looking at the torn clothes on his arm, he exhaled softly. Chu Changsheng. He would remember this name. He was a real man. Unfortunately, Chu Changsheng had killed Yin Yu, so he had to die. Holding his longbow, Yin Yu stepped out. In just a blink of an eye, he crossed the void and disappeared. The night sky resumed its tranquility. Only the stars twinkled, and the bright moon shone brightly. And Chu Changsheng, who was falling helplessly from the void. Hua's triflower snake eyes moved. She looked at Xiaoya, then at Chu Changsheng's falling body. She took a step forward and appeared in front of Chu Changsheng, supporting his body. With just a touch, Flowery's eyes narrowed. Then, a helpless look appeared on her face. Chu Changsheng's body had been hit by 99 arrows. His entire body was full of holes, and his vitality was gone. He would die without a doubt. Today he was still alive because of Chu Changsheng's obsession with the Valley of Gluttony. Unfortunately, his obsession would disappear eventually. At that time, Chu Changsheng would die. Hua supported Chu Changsheng's body. After thinking for a while, her triflower snake eyes bloomed with radiance. A moment later, Hua's body became enormous. She turned into a gorgeous golden snake. The snake opened its mouth, and its tongue curled. Chu Changsheng's body was sucked into it. Hua, what are you doing? Why did you eat the great elder? Xiaoya was so anxious that tears rolled down her cheeks. Flowery didn't know how to talk yet. She transformed into a little girl, reached out her hand, and grabbed Xiaoya's hand. Then, they ran far away. Shortly, the two little girls ran on the long street, arriving in front of the Taodai restaurant. The restaurant's door was closed, but there was light inside. Xiaoya looked at Hua, and her red eyes brightened. Yeah, Big Brother might have a way to save Grandpa Chu. Xiaoya's heart was filled with hope. She started to knock on the restaurant's door. While knocking, she cried, calling for Big Brother. Bu Fong seemed to hear the noise outside the door. He got up from his bed. He was wearing pajamas, which were unbuttoned, revealing Bu Fong's white, tender skin. He slowly walked down the stairs, rubbed his head, and said faintly, "Stop knocking. I'm coming." With a squeak, he opened the door. What entered his sight were two pairs of big eyes staring at him. Xiaoya's eyes were red, and her cute, exquisite face looked like a cat from crying. Hua's triflower snake eyes gazed at Bu Fong, emitting a different aura. Big Brother, say Grandpa Chu. The moment Xiaoya saw Bu Fong, she opened her mouth and cried. Bu Fong arched his brows. Rubbing her head, he brought them into the restaurant. As soon as Hua entered the restaurant, he ran to the path understanding tree and sat cross-legged next to Lord Go, squinting. Xiaoya, on the other hand, was sobbing intermittently as she recounted what had happened just now. Chu Changsheng was killed. Bu Fong's face was filled with surprise. The great elder of the Valley of Gluttony, Chu Changsheng, was killed in the Valley of Gluttony? This, Hua stood up, transforming into his snake form. His mouth wiggled. Instantly, Chu Changsheng's body was spat out from his mouth. Covered in sticky liquid, he fell on the ground. Chu Changsheng's entire body was covered in bloody holes. He was on his last breath. He would die without a doubt. If the seven-colored sky-devouring python didn't swallow him, he would have died many times. It was unknown when Nethery had climbed out of the Netherworld ship. She stood by Bu Fong's side and said calmly. He was wearing a black dress. Her white, slender legs were dazzling. After the seven-colored sky-devouring python swallowed Chu Changsheng, It had used its energy to preserve his last wisp of vitality. That was why Chu Chongqing didn't die. If it hadn't done that, Chu Chongqing's last wisp of vitality wouldn't have lasted for a long time. Gulp. Then, Hua swallowed Chu Chongqing's body into her stomach. Lord Go lay under the path understanding tree. Slowly, he opened his eyes, yawned, turned around, and continued to sleep. It seemed he didn't care about this kind of thing. Bu Fong was surprised looking at Hua. He reached out his hand to pinch Hua's chubby cheeks. Then, he patted the little girl's head. He didn't expect that the little girl could do that. All right, don't cry. Sleep early. Tomorrow's chef's challenge will be the elixir cuisine. At that time, we'll use the elixir cuisine to save Chu Chongqing. That old man came at the right time, said Bu Fong, rubbing his hair. However, since the elixir cuisine was to save Chu Chongqing, he had to change some ingredients. Chapter 792. Valley of Gluttony. In the void trembled like ripples spreading out. In the next moment, a figure slowly stepped out of the ripples, and his appearance gradually became clearer. Yin Chung frowned, his face cold. He carried the black longbow on his back. Raising his hand, he looked at his torn sleeve. The corners of his mouth rose into a cold smile. An ant is just an ant. In front of a giant like the Holy Lands, the Valley of Gluttony can only be trampled. So what if others bully you? The only thing you could do is tear off a piece of my sleeve. Yin Chung stamped his foot on the ground and muttered to himself. Suddenly, his body shook. The clothes on his body immediately tore apart, revealing his well-proportioned and fair body. A guard stepped forward and helped Yin Chung put on some clothes. Then Yin Chung sat on his seat, his body slanted, and he raised his hand to support his chin. The one who killed my brother is dead. Now, only the Holy Saint's task hasn't been completed. I can imagine that the netherworld creature that tore the Holy Saint's clone is in that mysterious restaurant. Yin Cheng's eyes looked pensive. Commander Yin, do you need me to go there to check? I will be very careful. A guard looked at Yin Chung, clasping his fists. Yin Chung lifted his eyes slightly and moved his finger to tap on the table. He glanced at the guard and shook his head. No need. If you go there, you will just die. It's meaningless. That netherworld creature could kill the Holy Saint's clone. Even if you want to escape, you can't. The guard was startled. He didn't say anything else. If Commander Yin said he couldn't escape, then he couldn't. Isn't there a chef's challenge tomorrow? Is it the chef's challenge between the restaurant owner and Lu Jieli, the jade scale knife on the tablet of gluttony? Yin Chung rubbed his chin. The guards nodded. The entire city knew about the chef's challenge tomorrow. They would know about it. Good. Then, we will go there tomorrow to observe, said Yin Chung. As his voice faded, the guards quietly retreated. The room resumed its tranquility. Only the sound of breathing could be heard. The next day, at dawn, the Glutton God City's tranquil atmosphere was washed away by the warm sunlight. The entire city seemed to have come back to life. People came and went, and the peddlers started their daily business. There was a huge flow of people entering and exiting the city gate. There was a crunching sound. The door of the restaurant opened. Bu Fong yawned lazily and walked out of the door. The warm sunlight shone on his face, making him feel warm all over. Twisting his neck, Bu Fong strode out of the restaurant. Yu's tall figure also dashed out of the restaurant and stood beside Bu Fong. Her long, straight black hair cascaded down, and her face was expressionless. In the distance, a few figures slowly approached. Xiaoyu dragged Hua and rushed over. Xiaoya's eyes were swollen from crying, and she looked exhausted. It was obvious that she had not slept all night. When she saw Bu Fong, she couldn't help but look excited. Big brother. Xiaoyu dragged Hua and dashed over. Hua still had that cold expression. However, when they arrived at Bu Fong's restaurant, Hua narrowed his eyes. He wanted to enter the house and sit cross-legged beside a black dog under the path understanding tree. However, Bu Fong grabbed his head and pulled him back. Let's go. Let's go to the chef's challenge. Bu Fong said, Can the chef's challenge save Grandpa Chu? Xiaoyu curiously raised her head and asked. It can, Bufong rubbed the little girl's head, replying calmly and confidently. You follow behind them, not saying a word. Then, the group of people walked toward the distance. Suddenly, a figure wrapped in a black robe appeared on the side of the road. That figure came to Bufong's side and lifted his hood, revealing a handsome face. His bangs fell down and streaked across Bufong's eyes. Bufong, young man, where's the spicy strip we agreed on? Where's Eye's spicy strip? Hades Era's eyes revealed his excitement. He had finally gotten rid of that clingy little fairy. Spicy strip. I've been busy practicing cooking, so I didn't have time to make spicy strips. How about you wait a little longer? Bufong said. Hades' nostrils flared, glancing at Bufong. Who are you trying to fool? You're busy. You've been lying in front of the restaurant all day, and you're telling I that you're busy? Hades Era was so angry, but he still maintained a smile. All right, I'll wait. Bufong, young man, is not busy. Bufong's mouth twitched, revealing an expression that made Hades Era want to beat him up. The group continued walking, heading to the end of the long street. Lou Jilly's restaurant was not far at the end of the long street in the Glutton God City. Lou Jilly was already standing in front of the restaurant. His restaurant was called the Jade Scale Restaurant, named after the famous knife in his hand, the Jade Scale knife. His restaurant was really big, and it wasn't smaller than the Phoenix Pavilion. No matter what, he was a special grade chef, so he had a good reputation and skills. Of course, his business wouldn't be bad. Lou Jilly leaned against the door of the Jade Scale Restaurant. He was wearing a clean chef's uniform. His long hair was tied up with a metal hoop. He was holding an old book in his hand, and he was flipping through it. While reading, he nodded from time to time, as though he was fascinated. He didn't see Bufong's group coming. When he turned the page, he felt some auras in front of him. He lifted his head and saw Bufong's group. You're here. Lou Jilly's face became serious. He straightened his body, looking at Bufong's group. Bufong was here, which meant that the chef's challenge was about to begin. Around them, besides Bufong's group, many diners who had come to watch the chef's challenge had also come. Lou Jilly turned around, bringing Bufong's group into the Jade Scale Restaurant. The other guards led the diners to the first floor of the restaurant. Just like the Phoenix Pavilion, the first floor of the Jade Scale Restaurant also had a projection array, which allowed people to watch the chef's challenge clearly. Today's theme was the elixir cuisine. This made many people excited. The elixir cuisine was an extremely expensive and precious dish. Ordinary chefs couldn't cook it because it was different from ordinary dishes. It required a lot of energy. There was a legend that the real top-grade elixir cuisine could revive the dead. Of course, it could just be a legend. After so many years in the Valley of Gluttony, there weren't many people who studied the elixir cuisine, and there weren't many records about it. Lou Jilly was still the #1 chef in the entire Valley of Gluttony when it came to cooking elixir cuisine. Bufong wasn't a stranger to the elixir cuisine. In fact, he had relied on the elixir cuisine to start his career. Regarding the elixir cuisine, Bufong had his own unique views. Of course, with Bufong's mental energy, it wasn't difficult to cook the elixir cuisine. They came to the second floor, which was very spacious. Obviously, Lou Jilly had prepared a lot for this chef challenge. I didn't think that the last chef challenge would be between you and me, Lou Jilly said, looking at Bufong. I've been observing and studying you since your first chef challenge. However, you're really magical. It seems that every time, you'll bring out dishes that are beyond people's expectations. So, I'm really looking forward to the chef challenge with you. Lou Jilly walked to the stove, placing both of his hands on it, smiling at Bufong. At this moment, Bufong was observing the entire second floor of the Jade Scale Restaurant, his eyes indifferent. In the second floor, there was a thick medicinal aroma. Obviously, there were a lot of medicinal ingredients piled up on the second floor. The competition of the elixir cuisine can't rely on the judges, because the competition of the elixir cuisine doesn't focus on the taste and texture. It focuses on the efficacy. Whether the ingredients can bring out the efficacy is the most important thing, said Lou Jilly. He raised his hand, patting. The sound of his hand hitting the ground reverberated on the second floor. Through the projection formation, everyone held their breaths. Boom! Boom! Two steel cages fell from the sky and smashed on the ground of the second floor, causing the entire second floor to tremble. Lu Jelly clasped his hands, walking slowly to the front of the cages. He raised his hand, patting the steel cage. Buzz, as the light flickered, the scene within the cage gradually became clear. It was actually two injured spirit beasts. They were spirit beasts that looked like they were carrying a small mountain on their backs. These are mountain-carrying boars, spirit beasts that die easily. Now they are on the verge of death. Let's compete to see who can save those spirit beasts faster. Who will win? What do you think? Lu Jili looked at Bufang, his eyes sparkling. He was a little excited. Finally, he could have a competition to his heart's content. He had calmed his heart, studying in seclusion for so many days. Finally, today, he could defeat Bufang, ending a chef's challenge winner. That feeling made people's blood boil. They were so excited. Bufang looked at the two pigs, the corners of his mouth twitching. His eyes moved, falling on Lu Jili. This is too troublesome. What's the point of saving pigs? Let's save him, Bufang said. Bufang's words made Lu Jili freeze on the spot. He didn't think that Bufang would reject his suggestion. You said, who should we save? Lu Jili took a deep breath, asking. The corners of Bufang's mouth rose. He raised his hand, patting Hua's head. Hua's triflower snake eyes turned, looking at Bufang. Then he took a step back, and his figure suddenly changed. He turned into a big snake. The big snake opened its mouth, and viscous liquid flowed out. Chu Chongqing's body, which was full of holes, was spat out. Lu Jili was instantly dumbfounded, as if he had been struck by lightning. What was going on? For this chef's challenge, Bufang beat the Great Elder half to death? That was impossible. It wasn't just Lu Jili. Through the projection formation, when everyone saw Chu Chongqing's badly wounded body, they were dumbstruck. The fellow that was spat out from the snake's mouth. Was it really Elder Chu? Swoosh! Everybody was in an uproar. The Great Elder was wounded and dying. Was this a joke? Last night, during the battle in the Gluttony restaurant, everybody thought that the Great Elder had driven the enemies away. Unexpectedly, the Great Elder was almost killed. Looking at the Great Elder's pitiful appearance, everybody's mouths trembled. On the first floor, Yin Cheng, who was clasping his hands, grinned. Chu Chongqing wasn't dead yet. He was really lucky. However, Yin Cheng's eyes were sharp. At first glance, he could see Chu Chongqing's condition. His vitality was gone, leaving only a wisp of will. As long as that will was broken, Chu Chongqing would die. In such a situation, let alone the elixir cuisine, even the real divine herbs couldn't save him. This chef's challenge is interesting. Yin Cheng sneered. Lu Jili sucked in a breath of cold air. This time, the elixir cuisine was used to save the Great Elder? Impossible. The Great Elder's vitality is gone. He's a dead man now. How could he be saved? Lu Jili's face was ashen, and he staggered. Bufang took out a velvet rope from his system-dimensional bag and tied his hair. His eyes turned to Lu Jili. I said I can save him, so I can save him, said Bufang. Lu Jili's eyes were like torches. Good. If you can save the Great Elder, I, Lu Jili, admit defeat in this chef challenge. Chapter 793. Chu Chongqing's body was riddled with bloody holes. There was a big hole in his heart, and his internal organs were all ruptured. The vitality in his body had been destroyed. Now, all that was left was the death aura twirling around his body. The death aura was so thick that it made people shiver uncontrollably. Lu Jili asked himself, it wasn't a problem of the elixir cuisine anymore. Even if he had divine herbs, he wouldn't be able to save Chu Chongqing. At this moment, saving Chu Chongqing was as difficult as bringing a dead man back to life. It wasn't to heal his wounds, but to snatch his life from the Grim Reaper. Lu Jili took several steps back, his face grimacing. He had never thought that Bufang would give him such a difficult problem. This problem was so difficult that it made him feel hopeless. He didn't have the power to save Chu Changsheng. Even if he had divine herbs in front of him, he didn't have the power to do so. Through the projection formation, everybody saw Lu Jieli's helpless and lonely face. Instantly, they felt a wave of sorrow in their hearts. No one had ever thought that great elder Chu Changsheng would encounter such a situation. Who was it that dared to do such a thing to the first elder? The corners of Yin Cheng's mouth curled up, showing his interest. The guard next to him came to Yin Cheng and asked, "Commander Yin, do you need us to erase Chu Changsheng's last wisp of vitality?" Yin Cheng played with his jet black hair, squinted at the guard, and said indifferently, "You dare to attack in front of so many people? Even if you do, are you sure you can destroy that wisp of vitality?" The guard was bewildered, hesitating for a moment. "Did you see the giant snake that swallowed Chu Changsheng?" "I couldn't see it clearly, but I'm sure that without that giant snake, Chu Changsheng's last wisp of vitality would have been shattered. If that giant snake wanted to kill you, you wouldn't even be able to blink." The guard was shocked and terrified. He looked at Hua, gulping. "Commander, is that the netherworld creature that killed the Holy Saint's clone?" Yin Cheng's mouth twitched, shaking his head. "Shut up, don't talk anymore. The netherworld creatures have nether energy on their bodies. The beautiful woman next to that snake is nether energy. As for that snake, it's not." The guard looked at him awkwardly, took a step back, and didn't say anything else. Yin Cheng, on the other hand, looked at the projection array seriously. "If I can save him, will you admit defeat? Do I win the chef's challenge?" Bufang raised his brows, glancing at Lu Jieli. Lu Jieli nodded in a serious manner. "Although my research on elixir cuisine is very thorough, I'm just a chef after all. I'm not a doctor. I can't bring a person back to life and regrow flesh and bones. I can't save the already dead Elder Chu. I can't, but if you can, I don't mind admitting defeat. All right, deal." Bufang looked at Lu Jieli and nodded. Crash! In the next moment, Bufang no longer paid attention to Lu Jieli. He pulled up the sleeve of his vermilion robe, revealing his fair arm. His other arm was wrapped in bandages made by the black and white Tao ties. Bufang made a hand seal. His mental force immediately poured into the black and white bandages. Instantly, the bandages seemed to wake up, wrapping around his arm. Swish! The bandage whipped in the air as if it was about to shatter the void. Roar! The black and white Tao Ye's souls emerged, roaring at each other. Then, under Bufang's control, the bandages wound around Chu Changsheng's body. The bandages grew longer and thicker. Shortly after, Chu Changsheng was tied up like a mummy, tightly wrapped up. Thud! Chu Changsheng, who was tied up tightly, landed on the ground. He straightened his body and stood up. The bandages on Bufang's hand disappeared, revealing his black and white arm. His arm was covered in dense lines. One side was black, while the other side was white. The two lines entangled with each other, creating a terrifying scene. Bufang seemed to be used to it. His hand shook and green smoke twirled. The black turtle constellation, Wok, emerged from his hand, pounding on the stove. Everybody retreated, leaving the stage to Bufang. Everybody was curious. What method did Bufang have to save the dying Chu Changsheng? How could he snatch his life from the Grim Reaper's hand? Spirit herbs flew out of Bufang's system-dimensional bag, landing on the stove. As soon as those spirit herbs appeared, a thick medicinal aroma filled the entire place. Hiss! Many people took in a breath of cold air. Everyone's eyes were filled with amazement. One leaf, acheron grass. Three-petal flower of helplessness, extreme amethyst willow. These are the top herbs in the divine soul realm. If we don't control them well, they could turn into the ultimate poison. Lu Jieli was knowledgeable, and he had read a lot of books. Of course, he could recognize those spirit herbs. The medicinal aroma of those spirit herbs was really thick. Moreover, each of them was really beautiful. However, the more beautiful they were, the stronger their potency was, and the more poisonous they were. Every medicine was 30% poisonous. With so many herbs mixed together, the toxicity wouldn't be weak. Did Bufong want to save someone or kill them? Just a little bit of this kind of top-grade elixir would be enough to kill an almighty expert. Moreover, with Bufong's cultivation base, how could he get such precious spirit herbs? Lu Jili took in a breath of cold air. No matter if it was the acheron grass or the flower of helplessness, they were all precious herbs. Some of them couldn't even be found in the hidden dragon continent. For example, the acheron grass was a kind of spirit herb that grew in the netherworld. Lu Jili had only read about it in ancient books. Legend had it that the netherworld had a long, blood-red river. Corpses and resentful souls floated in that river. That river was called the Acheron. The water was extremely poisonous, and touching it could melt people's flesh and blood. And this Acheron grass was the spirit herb that grew by the Acheron River. How could Bufong have this kind of thing? Lu Jili was bewildered. His eyes shifted, falling on you from a distance. He contemplated, right? This woman was a netherworld creature. Perhaps she had given Bufong the Acheron grass. However, relying on the Acheron grass alone couldn't save Chu Changshin. What did Bufong want to do? Actually, at this moment, you and Hades were also shocked. They had never thought that Bufong would take out a spirit herb like the Acheron grass. Hades gawked, his eyes filled with astonishment. The Acheron grass by the Acheron River. It's something that the great sage of the Acheron, that old fool. How did Bufong get it? Did that mangy dog give it to him? It shouldn't be. That mangy dog hates water. Why would he go to the Acheron grass? Yu's black eyes twinkled as she gazed at Bufong. She knew that Bufong had a secret. That secret seemed to be very big. This made her more interested. Of course, she was also interested in the dragon blood rice. One-leaf Acheron grass was the lowest grade of Acheron grass. However, no matter what, it was still an Acheron grass, so its medicinal effect was still there. Of course, those herbs weren't given to him by anyone. Bufong had exchanged them from the system. To exchange for these spirit herbs, Bufong had spent a lot of money. Opening his mouth, Bufong's eyes focused. Instantly, the golden-red heaven and earth obsidian flame flew out. Under the control of Bufong's powerful mental force, it wrapped around the spirit herbs. The terrifying temperature exploded, and the spirit herbs melted at a speed visible to the naked eye. Shortly, they turned into drops of liquid. These drops of liquid were brutally mixed by Bufong, turning into a silver-gray color. The silver-gray color surged, changing its shape. After doing all this, Bufong put the ball of liquid into the black turtle constellation wok. Instantly, the temperature in the wok rose, and the liquid in the wok began to boil. Tap, 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 tap. A long and narrow spirit ginseng was pinched by Bufong. The golden dragon bone kitchen knife quickly cut it, cutting the spirit ginseng into pieces. The pieces flew into the black turtle constellation wok, bobbing up and down. Dense medicinal energy burst forth, emitting a dense color that seemed to envelop the entire wok. Gurgle, gurgle. Everyone seemed to be able to hear the sound of the liquid boiling in the black turtle constellation wok. The smoke that was spurting out seemed to have turned silver. Everyone felt as though their bodies were shrouded in a cold aura. In the next instant, Bufong's hand shook, and a stream of light appeared. It was as though a beast's roar could be heard. Thump, thump. The sound of heartbeats could be heard. Everyone's expression changed drastically at this moment. This sound, some people clutched their hearts, and their faces became incomparably pale. Hua's triflower snake eyes turned, and he flicked his tongue. Hades' Era's eyes rolled around. Lu Jili's mouth opened wide, and he was shocked beyond words. This is the Tao Hia's heart. Lu Jili was enlightened, and he seemed to have completely woken up at this moment. The Tao Hia's heart was the heart of an ancient spirit beast. It could revive the dead, and it could even regrow flesh and bones. The Tao Hia's heart was obtained by Bufong, and he had never thought that Bufong would be willing to use it to save someone. Was this chef's challenge really that important to Bufong? Lu Jili looked at Bufong with a complicated gaze. Inside the projection array, Everyone had just recovered from the shock of seeing the Acheron grass, and they were once again shocked by the Valley of Gluttony. That was the King Taohie's heart. It was the Taohie's heart of the ancient spirit beast, the Tao Tai. Even if it was damaged, it was still an incomparably precious treasure. This kind of treasure, Bufong was actually willing to use it to save someone. Yin Cheng's eyeballs gradually expanded, and they became huge. Crack! The chair he was sitting on was smashed into pieces by his palm. His body emitted a terrifying aura, and everyone who was immersed in their excitement felt a wave of fear. The Taohie's heart, Yin Cheng grinned, and his eyes revealed a trace of excitement. How could he waste such a precious treasure on a useless ant? If he could obtain the Taohie's heart, the shackles that had been restraining him would be broken instantly. His divine altar would be ignited, and he would step into the divine spirit realm. This Taohie's heart was very useful to him. In front of such temptation, Yin Cheng could no longer maintain his calm heart. Yin Cheng stood up, and the energy on his body surged. Guards appeared around him one after another. Why waste such a precious Taohie's heart on an ant? Owner Bu, why don't you give it to me? I will definitely remember Owner Bu's kindness. Yin Cheng's eyes widened, and his face revealed a twisted smile. A moment later, the longbow on his back was placed in his hands. Jade talismans floated around his body, and terrifying waves of true energy spread out. The atmosphere in the Jade Scale restaurant instantly became tense. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.